Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Vanguard League. We are here with Week 6, and we got a top-of-the-table matchup here between the Akuma Katanas and the Nameless Thieves, as we're starting to round on out our regular season. Just one more week to go after this one. Determine who's going to be making the playoffs, who's going to be making the play-ins, and whose season is going to end a little bit short. My name is Gordo. I am joined tonight by Nyarko. Nyarko, we got a great matchup coming up ahead.
Oh yeah, we got a great one. Akuma Katana still, in terms of their series, undefeated at a flat 5-0 versus Nameless Thieves, who are hovering at around third in the Noxus standings here. They are 3-2, but they are kind of eking out a victory over their other competitors in kind of this middle band of the league with their match differential here. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not Nameless Thieves will be able to kind of propel themselves forward by picking up a victory here, and furthermore, whether or not they'll be able to clinch a second spot over Glacial Esports Yellow. In order to do so, especially as we move deeper into the season, that's going to require them going up 2-0 a few times, and I think that for them, those hopes start tonight.
Yeah, absolutely here. Definitely gonna be an interesting matchup to keep our eyes on, as my stream is impossible to see. I'll get that figured out. But in the meantime, yeah, the Akuma Katanas, they've had a dominant season so far. I got to talk to Klexo a little bit back earlier towards the start of the league when we were covering them back in week 2. And he talks a lot about how this team's been together for a really long time. This team has a lot of experience as a group competing together. And it's really cool to see them, get back together. They took a little bit of a split off and go right back to some really nice dominance here. They won together back a couple of years ago, and they've been grinding it out since then, and now are looking to try to come and take another title, and they're well on their way towards being able to do so.
Both Akuma Katanas and Nameless Thieves have been pretty consistent in regards to their roster, and that's something that we kind of see as a defining factor for these players that are at the top of their leaderboards. They stick together. We don't really see too many substitutes, hardly any E-subs either, and that ultimately means that you get a lot of chemistry and a lot of development between these players, and it's been paying dividends so far for both Akuma Katanas as well as Nameless Thieves, who have been sticking together with very few alterations throughout this split especially. So with that in mind, we're about to move into the draft phase here in a second, but for the time being, let's get these kind of broad observations out of the way really quick, Gordo. What do you want to see, especially given the way that the game's been balancing since 12.5 came out?
I'm really interested to see some of what these mage bot laners are going to be brought to the table here. These are, on both sides, some squads that have been bringing out those non-traditional picks. They've played the Vanguard, they've played the Cassiopeia bot on both sides, actually, which is crazy. You'd think that would be a pocket pick that only one team really brings to the table, but in fact, both of these guys are playing it. There's some traditional AD carries mixed in there as well, but I think I'm really interested to see what these bot lane drafts look like. A lot of the draft at the pro level and around there really seems to center around those marksman picks right now. A lot of Zeri, a lot of Jinx, a lot of Aphelios, and either picks to deal with those champions or just picking those champions. So given that both of these guys are willing to bring out some non-traditional picks that maybe will throw a wrench into those plans, I'm curious to see how that affects what our draft ends up looking like.
It really is a golden age for some flexing, especially into that bot laner role. Both teams, as you said, picking up a few mages here and there, and right now, even if you look at kind of the solo queue and high elo tier lists, you're starting to see names like Seraphine, like Cassiopeia, beginning to climb the ranks. So I'm not surprised that we've seen stuff like the Seraphine bot in the hands of Extorted in the past, as well as KCEDC going on to that Cassiopeia a few times, but in turn, there's also kind of an impact that you see in playing out in the mid lane where you kind of need to have an AD threat. Klexo has gone the Corki before, has gone the Aurelia as well quite a bit in order to kind of balance out the damage spread throughout the team. And it'll be interesting to see how Cheshin53 kind of answers back and also kind of looks towards more AD oriented picks if we in fact do see these bot lanes get settled early on into the draft.
Yeah, that is going to be the Xayah lock-in coming in from the side of the Akuma Katanas, so we are going to get some non-traditional bot laners, although it isn't going to be the mage-focused ones. This Graves still going to be a flex pick, could be taken into the jungle or into the top lane, and really excited to check out the Misfortune Zaya matchup. Seems like it's going to be a little early game favorite here for the side of the Nameless Thieves, but you know, the Zayas these days, they're going for these kind of lethality focused builds. They're going for the Essence Reavers as well. Would be very interested to see how that ends up working on out. The Braum also going to be great up against this Misfortune, can do a lot to block away from that bullet time ultimate, as now we're going to see some junglers starting to be pinched here from the side of Akuma. We're seeing some top laners pinched from the side of Nameless, so it really feels like they're intending for this Graves to go to the jungle. Doubtful has played it there once already, although No Flame Top Brain has also taken it into the top lane, so definitely a true flex pick here for this squad.
I do like that early pickup of the Graves. Of course, he isn't as strong as he was in previous patches, given the ranged Hullbreaker nerfs that we saw come through in 12.5. But the fact that it impacts Nameless Thieves' secondary bans here with the Aurelion Gwen coming out, it kind of shows that Akuma may just decide to kind of put that into the top lane and use kind of this relatively open spot for junglers to kind of allow for them to go for a counter matchup or a big pick to really turn things in their favor here.
Yeah, I like to see the Glen ban here. Like to see the Hecarim and Xin Zhao taken away. That really is that tier 1 of the jungle. We'll see what Strova wants to go for here. Has played a little bit of Sejuani in there, a little bit of Kindred, so definitely still has some options. That Sejuani in particular, you've already got 2 melees on your team, does really well with the Camille. Would be interested to see if that one gets locked on in, but it is going to be the direction of the Kindred. They want that second marksman to be able to join up with the Misfortune. She'll be holding things down in the AoE department. Kindred will be bringing in that single target.
Yeah, the Kindred is a pretty interesting choice here. It gives them a lot of flexibility in terms of their mid lane selections as well. They definitely do need an AP threat, which kind of makes me look at a Rise mid maybe for the side of Nameless Thieves, as that will also, if they go that Fimbulwinter build that we've been seeing it become more and more popular in recent patches, allow for them to also have a little bit more tankiness, a little bit more of a frontliner, and we're going to get the Gragas locked in onto the side of the Akuma Katanas. We have seen Gragas mid, we've seen Gragas jungle, and we've seen Gragas top, all played in this league as well as in solo queue itself, so there's still a little bit of uncertainty on the side of Akuma Katanas in terms of the positional choices. Victor going to probably be locked into the mid lane there, which means that the real flex is going to be between the Graves and the Gragas here. And we move on to the last pick for Nameless Thieves.
Yeah, it's going to be the Victor. I like it. It's going to be a safe blind pick. It's not going to be as roaming focused as the Rise, but it's also definitely a lot safer in a lot more matchups. We'll see what Chen wants to go for here in that mid lane. He's played a fair amount of the Ahri, played a few other picks as well here, but the Silas is going to be what ends up getting locked on, and I think that's going to be a first for him. So he's going to take that one up against the Victor here. Has a cool suite of ultimates to steal away from. That Glacial Fissure going to be pretty good. The Explosive Cask as well, definitely looking like it's going to be a pretty exciting selection to be able to steal away from that mid laner and to be able to really try to interrupt some of what's going to be going on around this map, trying to get you know, that Graves pushed back on in, trying to get that Victor pushed out of position. These picks aren't going to be the most mobile. Zaya as well. She doesn't dodge away with Featherstorm. Going to be great targets for us to try to aim for on this Silas for the side of Chen. And also going to represent another additional kind of frontliner there. He's going to be able to drain tank, at least to some degree. He's going to be a little bit of a frontliner the same way that the Camille's going to be. And when you've got double marksman, you really want to have a little bit of beef up there in the front lines who can at least tussle with a Gragas, tussle with a Braum until, you know, you can really set up for them to do their work.
I think that both teams are relatively balanced in terms of their front versus back line here. That Braum going to provide really great peel and protection for the Victor and the Zaya here, especially against champions that really want to look for dives and look for big engages like the Camille, trying to isolate people out there with the Hextech ultimatum. And on the side of the Nameless Thieves, in terms of the way that they want to play things out, besides that diving potential we talked about before, I think that the Leona is also just going to be a great engager, is going to provide a lot of discord within team fights with her ultimate. Just all in all, big potential for plays from both sides, and it's going to be a question of how well they're going to be able to enact a combination of split pushing as well as team fighting. I think we're probably going to be seeing a relatively balanced approach to the game from the side of Akuma Katanas, where Graves will probably be placed on split pushing duty for the vast majority of plays. But also, given what we were saying before in terms of the diminished power of Hullbreaker on ranged champs, there might also be the case that they, instead of putting him on the far side of the map, try to keep him close by, allow for him to rotate in, get a flank by using E over a wall, something like that, in order to drop a really big ultimate and do some damage to the squishies on the side of Nameless Thieves.
Yeah, and I think to me it really looks like they're actually going to send that Gragas up towards the top lane. No Flame top lane has played 5 games of it already this season. Really feels comfortable on that selection, and it's going to function just fine up against the Camille. Can get itself out of the Hextech ultimatum when it needs to. If they start setting up for ganks with that Kindred, trying to get those additional marks on off. And then the Graves holding it down just to keep farming out up in the jungle and be that secondary carry threat they have as well. We really do have kind of the double marksman jungler setup coming on through in this game, which is something we don't get to see too often and is going to warp the game just a little bit here. It's going to be interesting to see how they end up navigating their way through this game, given that the ganking power is going to be a little bit on the lower side, and the scaling power is going to be pretty high. Graves additionally going to be somebody who's going to be able to fight for his own marks up against that Kindred, knowing that, you know, Kindred's going to be going in for those invades. That 4 mark is the point where you really want to break through as Kindred. Once you get 4 marks of the Kindred, you get that 75 additional range. You start to really become a lot more functional as a champion. Prior to that, you're probably substantially weaker than most other picks in the game. So going to really be interested to see how Nameless is going to be able to play around this Kindred, get her additional stacks, and get her rolling. They should have some opportunity to get a little bit of priority in top lane, some opportunity to get a little bit of priority in the bottom lane as well here. This Misfortune going to use that love tap to keep pushing in the wave. Just going to hope for some favorable spawns and see what kind of creative pathing Nameless can bring to the table and that Strova can bring to the table in particular in order to get that Kindred rolling.
You definitely have a little bit more flexibility in regards to rotations coming out of the side of Nameless Thieves, which will definitely provide a bit of benefit and help to the Kindred, especially if it is the case that you get some unfortunate marks coming through that require invades on the side of Strova here. And in turn, this is not to say that Akuma Katanas has a particularly weak early game. Victor obviously does want to power farm, get ahead and get pretty strong, but Braum into a Leona does have that range advantage, at least in this kind of early phase where you aren't seeing big engages, but you're looking for poke and looking for the ability to kind of get waves managed here. So in terms of the bot lane, Kissy ADC and Bashful Iceberg definitely have the work cut out for them in terms of making sure that this Braum isn't just kind of able to walk all over and do what they want here. And in the meantime, Graves going to be a big powerhouse in that jungle as well. As alongside Kindred, he also has great engage potential, big damage output, as you were talking about. They're both these marksmen in the jungle. So going to be an explosive early game, and that is going to translate into some big plays coming through in the mid to late game as we see champions begin to scale up. We see Silas begin to kind of get around the map and pick up a variety of different ultimates. And just broadly, I think that we have a real chance at a banger on our hands.
Yeah, I think so as well. And, you know, a lot of first-time picks coming through for both of these squads. This is going to be our first week of the AVL on 12.5, and you can see the adjustments are already starting to come on through. Some first-time picks in the bottom lane here, some first-time picks in the mid lane as well for both of these squads. Really interested to see how they're going to end up playing around these selections. You know, they're not the mid lane in particular, you know, not the most unique selections in the world, but new adaptations for these teams coming into a new meta that hasn't really solidified itself all the way on through yet. Definitely going to be an exciting one to watch take to the Rift. Akuma Katanas trying to keep their undefeated streak alive here, move up to 6-0. And Nameless Thieves edging up towards that top 2 position. They're at 3-2. They want to get every win they possibly can. Reminder, top 2 gets you directly into playoffs. 3rd through 6th has to go through that play-in stage, and 7th and 8th going to be dropped right out there. Neither of these teams are in that last camp, but Nameless definitely want to get themselves into the top 2 conversation, while Akuma want to solidify their position up there. We're going to throw it to a quick break while we get loaded on to the Rift for game number 1, but don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Vanguard League, where we are going to be checking out Akuma Katanas taking on the Nameless Thieves here in our match of the night. Got a best of 3 in store here that all starts right here. Some interesting selections. The double marksman in the jungle going to be where my eyes are going to be, especially Strova. Kindred always going to make the game a little bit about herself there. We're going to see how many stacks Strova's able to get for himself on this matchup. Doubtful and No Flame going in early on to try to get a little bit of vision. Going to be spotted on out, but nonetheless going to set down their first ward here on the opposing red buff.
Just a little bit of wolf harass here and there for Strova, but not going to translate into anything major. Looks like Doubtful is going to back, going over to that early sweeper, definitely looking to counter jungle here and keep Kindred off of those marks. Also notably, Doubtful is opting for that phase rush build onto the Graves here, just going to look for a little bit more kiting potential as well as stickiness if he decides to go for something we're talking about off stream a little bit, which is that Gore Drinker Graves build that we've been seeing pop up, especially in solo queue.
Yeah, that's been Pioshik's thing as of late. I've seen it attributed to him in a couple of places. He's been a little ahead of the curve on a couple of the jungle meta itemization changes that have occurred over, the last season or two. Pretty creative guy over there in the LCK, and the Gore Drinker Graves build, definitely one of them. Gives you a lot more CDR, which in turn makes you a lot tankier. You stack up the grit a lot faster. As Quexo gonna get a nice trade there up against Chen in the early game. Chen starts off the trade, but he bites a little bit more than he can chew there, and is going to be pretty low here, forced to pop a potion.
Not the best judgment for Chen there at the beginning. Definitely you want to be playing aggressive into that Victor, especially in these first few levels, but just going that deep into a wave is going to be rough as Zenith Blade lands. Oh man, that's an early flash too.
Yeah, good flash from Extorted, pulls Bashful Iceberg under the turret, forces him to respond with his own flash, but as the Leona, you're willing to make that trade every single time. Extorted now going to be a little bit more vulnerable in the bottom lane. You gotta be sure that that's getting communicated up to Strova to be able to try to make a visit happen down here later on, knowing that Zaya, prior to having the ultimate especially, going to be very vulnerable here. Does still have access to the cleanse to get out of some of Iceberg's CC, but will still be very capable of being chased on down. Well, Kai's got a pretty big wave stacked up here in the top lane. Has done a good job of keeping No Flame away from the wave thus far. Solely trying to use that range advantage you talked about, trying to get a little bit of poke on in there with the Winter's Bite.
Yeah, and going to be responded in kind by Bashful Iceberg, getting a nice little proc of that Glacial Augment to allow for some more poke to go down onto the Braum, but we do have an invade.
Yeah, Strova successfully steals away the red buff, keeps chasing down onto Doubtful. Now going to be even on camps, but is getting 3 buffed, or is in the process of getting 3 buffed. Strova now has a great angle to go back up towards the top side, claim his first mark of the game. It has spawned on that top side crab. He's going to try to double crab it, though, moving on towards the bottom one first and foremost. And looks like he should be able to get it. Doubtful, having just lost his red buff, is instead moving on down to be able to pick on up those Krugs. And with how strong Kai is in the top lane, it's going to be tough to respond towards that top side crab.
Yeah, pause coming out right here, but frankly, that just gives us a little bit of time to talk about how this early game is playing out. I'm sure things will be sorted very soon here. Oh, there we go. One of the things that I find recently in terms of discussions of early Scuttle Crabs and the value of Double Crab is that people kind of forget the vision dimension of the game. Sure, it gives less gold and less experience over to the jungler that claims the Scuttle, but when you have things like this very mobile Bashful Iceberg, who on Leona has just been already moving around the map, first helping with that invade and then walking mid, I think that it's really valuable to just be able to get these 2 big free wards right there in the middle of the river. It's also going to be a boon for the red team even to a greater extent, given how deeply Kissy ADC and Bashful Iceberg have been pushing in Extorted and Soleil there in the bottom lane. It just allows for them to continue to extend and provide pressure without having to worry to the same degree about a gank.
Yeah, definitely does give them that little option. They just got to keep their Tri-Brush warded, as it's the only path really left for Doubtful to be able to come through, but that's going to be a pretty easily done, especially going up against this Graves, who is not going to be bringing too much CC to the table, as Doubtful is instead trying to make a play towards top, but Kai, he's got the hook shot, just zips on out of there. Not really much that they can say about this. This is not even the flashless Camille. Kai does have access to that summoner spell if he ends up needing to use it. He's going to take a rough trade here up against Doubtful, gets the sweep back on in to get a little bit of health back, but now he's got to think about recalling. His wave is coming on up to block the other wave from hitting the turret, so he'll be able to recall and TP back without losing too much income.
I do like the choice by Doubtful to stay there in the top lane to help Gragas get this wave crash. It's going to equalize CS and momentum here and force that teleport out of Kai, who otherwise would be punished pretty hard by walking back onto that crashed wave right there. It's going to give Gragas just a little bit more freedom. And just generally, I think it's a good response to the kind of counter jungling we're seeing coming out of the Kindred here. Everything was already kind of taken. He's able to rotate back down to the bot side of the map now and just is making the most of a pretty restricted map so far for the side of Akuma Katanas, especially given that dominance over river vision that we saw established by Strova earlier on.
Definitely here, solely moved away for a short while to get a little bit of vision down, but is now returning back towards the bottom lane. The second mark for Kindred going to spawn over by those birds. Doubtful going to clear them away pretty quickly, deny that one from going on over to Strova. Presumably Strova has marked Doubtful. That's normally how you want to take these Kindred matchups. Just mark the opposing jungler. That's who you're most likely going to be interacting with if you get the chance to snag yourself an extra mark early on. We'll see if he ends up moving that one later on to try to target a particular lane. Second Scuttle going to spawn up in that top river here pretty shortly. Strova in a good position to take it and is pinging on my way towards the mid lane. See if he tries to set on up for Klexo.
Has been doing a good job playing in on the tightrope, just making sure that both Chechen and Strova can't really get a great engage off onto him. He also just has a lot of that damage output that will just kind of help to keep the lane in balance and in his favor. Ooh, explosive cast going to be dropped there to help No Flame Top Brain peel off Kai on the Camille.
Yeah, I think he wanted to push him back under turret there, get some additional shots in, and potentially go for the solo kill. Kai steps back, is able to get knocked away instead of in, and so will pretty much neutralize that play. Now still does have the ultimate. Maybe he's just going to throw it on down here to try to set up for Strova. They want No Flame to step up just a little bit farther, and that really might be far enough here. He's going to go on in. He's going to land that knockback. Now throwing on down the Hextech Ultimatum. No Flame has no way to escape this without the explosive cask. Nice setup here from Kai and Strova, and this should be first blood picked up for the Kindred in the top lane.
Really good forward thinking there in Kai's hands, just making sure that that wave began to push back into them, and even after explosive cast came out, not really being deterred as we see Doubtful trying to do something.
Doubtful nearly killing Kai there with the collateral damage, but Kai manages to sustain through it and stay alive. Strova not quite able to make the collapse happen, even with the use of his flash. Chen going to go in up against Klexo here, but just going to get completely melted by the Chaos Storm. The turnaround, though, from Chen on his own Chaos Storm is going to make that into a 1-for-1 solely. With the additional resistances provided by the stand behind me, it's just not enough.
Yeah, that mobility that Chen had to allowed for him to get a little bit of health back before that ultimate dropped, but in turn you see that you really only had Lost Chapter in the inventory for Klexo, which means that when a Chaos Storm of Silas's own was dropped onto him, he just simply had to sit there and kind of take that damage as he moved away.
Yeah, not gonna quite be fast enough yet. Needs to get, you know, that extra Q movement speed where possible, but not gonna be enough there. Bashful Iceberg finding a little engage here on the No Flame top brain. Chen showing up as well. This is a 3 versus 1 onto this Gragas. No Flame going to fall on down here before the fight gets started. Now Solely and Doubtful here try to take the 2v3. The Rift Herald has already been picked on up. Is going to be claimed there by the side of Strova. He's going to be pretty happy about that one. That's another play going towards the side of Nameless Thieves. They get a nice setup in the top lane. They get themselves another free kill. Chen, blocked from returning to mid lane, though, is going to end up losing a lot of minions to this turret. He's lost a lot of minions in general. Klexo at plus 30.
Yeah, things definitely going broadly in favor of Nameless Thieves across the map, but there is a little bit of a rough patch there in that mid lane. Victor sitting on so much farm, basically perfect CS so early on in the game, is not what you want to see, especially given the fact that one of the burdens that Silas has in this matchup is trying to get that Victor shut down, or at least playing afraid early on.
definitely here. Big wave crash in the top lane. That's going to be Iceberg getting locked on down by concussive blows. Has nowhere left to go and is going to fall on down. Solely ends up claiming that kill. And Chen doesn't feel like he can step up any farther either. He's already been chunked on out. He's got no summoner spells. He's going to hide back under his turret. And this is going to be the signal for Doubtful to get started on this dragon. Going to try to claim a neutral for himself. Chen going on in here up against Klexo. That's going to be the Chaos Storm thrown on down. And a solo kill for Klexo. Over-aggression from Chen going to be punished there.
I think that Chen really began to see how this lane was playing out and decided to limit test a bit, realizes that a solo queue here can really kind of turn the momentum of mid back into his favor, but unfortunately pays the price for that confidence, or at least that attempt down onto the victor as we see a fight bot side.
Yeah, Kissy sees a great opportunity to just keep going aggressive, runs solely all the way down with a little bit of additional CC. Kissy still has the ultimate, is going to go for the double up onto Doubtful, nearly finishes him off, but not quite going to be able to get there. And then the damage from Extorted and Klexo is enough to trade back onto Bashful, makes it into a 1-for-1. Kissy very low here, has to play very respectfully up against the long-range skills that can be brought out here by the Victor, by the Xayah. One little Twin Blades here is going to finish him on off. Extorted going to be forced into that Feather Storm off the back of the bullet time. Will manage to stay alive. That's going to be a nice use of Kissy there to just trade ultimates. Now going to have to go for the recall after having cleared out the wave.
A lot of confidence from Kissy trying to get something done even at such low health against Extorted with ultimate there. It doesn't turn into much of anything, and now we have both ultimates expended from the bot laners on either side. And speaking of balance, we also now have that 4-to-4 kill ratio. Pretty interesting given the fact that things seem to have started really in favor of Nameless Thieves, and they still definitely hold a gold advantage there. But I think that this really shows the resilience of Akuma Katanas, and one of the reasons why they sit atop the lead here. They're really able to find ways back in and never really sacrifice things for nothing. They're always looking for plays, and they're continually able to find ways to kind of reassert momentum within a game.
Yeah, now once again engaging here onto Klexo. That's going to be a kill picked up for Strova. Chen going pretty low, as is Strova himself. Strova going to have to throw down the ultimate to avoid going on down there to the caster minions. Doubtful now coming on up, going to land the slow there off of the smoke screen. Solely is running interference as well. Coming alongside, going to be looking for those Qs, going to be looking for that CC, but the disengage is going to be successful. Strova and Chen sneak away with just the tiniest bit of HP. They get their 1-for-0 up against Klexo, and that's really where they want to turn around this match. You know, they had Strova running early on, but the lack of any mid-priority and the fact that Chen been forced on out so much has made it very tough to get additional marks.
And if you see the kind of team composition that Akuma Katanas has drafted, I should not speak right now. There's a big ultimate dropping down on Sully.
Yeah, nice use of the Solar Flare to lock down onto Sully, but the additional damage reduction brought by the Unbreakable lets him survive through Kissy ADC's damage. Kissy just got access to the bullet time once again here. Look to see if he can find a nice little angle for that off of Bashful Iceberg, finding another engage. Is going to be Solely playing a lot safer now. Strova getting caught in the jungle, going to get explosive cast backed on in, flashes away from Doubtful's damage, barely avoids the collateral damage, but now the shutdown going to come on through nonetheless. Just one more shotgun blast, going to let Doubtful pick that one up.
And you kind of see the radiating effects of that play mid. Strova got a lot secured down there with the kill onto Klexo. Big ultimate being dropped down on the bot side of the map. Braum going down.
The flash in, though, gets punished there as the Blade Caller comes back on in, and Extorted gets himself a double kill in the 1-versus-2. At first, start off with Soli's mistake. He uses the ultimate a little bit too early, gives Kissy ADC the prime target to be able to pop on off that bullet time without risk of getting it interrupted, but flashes in right into that Blade Caller, takes so much damage from Extorted, and Extorted comes out with the 1v2, 3-0 now on this Xayah.
Xayah looking pretty big here, going to be able to round out the start of their build with that Gale Force here alongside the Berserker's Greaves, and that's really kind of showing the value of Cleanse in this matchup here. They're able to play a little bit more loosely and a little bit more aggressively to answer back on big engages from Leona, and even the follow-up from Kissy ADC. They're able to stay mobile and move around the bullet time right there, and in turn deliver back a walloping of their own.
Great play there for the bot lane of the Akuma Katanas. They've been pushed in for a long time. They're down a lot of CS here, but that double kill for Extorted going to do a lot to neutralize things and keep this Xayah competitive as he finishes off his Gale Force. So it is not going to be one of those lethality-focused Xayah builds. Going to be a little bit more of a traditional crit setup, given some of those balance changes a little while ago to make the E scale up with your crit chance. Next dragon spawning in 20 seconds. It looks like both teams are trying to group around for it, but it is the side of Akuma Katanas getting here just a little bit sooner.
Akuma Katanas definitely have that priority over the river now, and the question is, will you be able to see a flank come through for the side of Nameless Thieves? We do have Chen Chen kind of on the far side over here, looking for some presence in the river as we see a rotation back and a fight break out.
Lockdown onto Soli here. He's taken a lot of abuse through the Unbreakable. Going to get chunked out pretty low, going to avoid the Everfrost and manage to stay alive. But now it's the 5-man squad of the Nameless Thieves going back out of the Dragon. It's Akuma Katanas looking to get their re-engage on through. Doubtful leading the frontline charge, trying to finish off that Dragon. Not quite going to be able to do it, though. It gets smited down by Strova as the bullet time takes out onto Extorted. This is a one fight for the Nameless Thieves. Now, what else can they turn around onto? Klexo gets a big Chaos Storm, but he's not able to convert it into any kills. Instead, he's going to lose his own life and that of his support. No Flame Top Ray getting chased down as well, and every single member of the Nameless Thieves, they're diving and ducking in and out of the fight. They managed to keep themselves alive, and they dominated 4-0.
A huge swing coming out in favor of Nameless Thieves here. We saw the probably rightful aggression on the side of Akuma Katanas. They were trying to get some priority back over that Dragon. Oh, and now Doubtful's caught out.
Yeah, just a little bit too far up there. Bashful going to flash on in, guarantee the stun, guarantee the lockdown, and give the kill over to Strova. Now 5-1 on this Kindred. Can we get a little mark check in there? Gotta feel like he's already checked on in over towards those 4 stacks.
Yeah, that was probably a little bit too hopeful on the side of Doubtful, just walking back into his own jungle. The whole team was dead, no one to really rotate in if he were to get bursted down, and we saw Nameless Thieves capitalize on that fact to basically get a pretty delayed ace down there. Big kills over onto the carries. They're on who you want to see from the side of Nameless Thieves, and after securing this second Rift Herald, it's really going to be a question of how they're going to take this one home.
Ooh, Chen Chen, though, missing the Abduct off the back of the Abscond. Klexo trying to chase this one down. One more laser will finish it. Chen Chen just barely manages to sneak away, is able to avoid that last little bit of damage, but still it's Klexo now with his first item completed. Really strong here, has the upgrade onto the laser as well, can clear away these waves all day long, and is doing a great job of forcing anybody who stands against him in this mid lane back underneath the turret. Calling over Doubtful now to try to make the play happen. Strova dashes forward and is now looking to get punished for it. Gonna have to throw down that Lamsor's pipe, and it's just gonna get melted on through. There is the Q from Graves up against the turret, but that's a big bullet time, chunking out Soli, trying to force it back. Double up lands, it passes through on a Doubtful. Double kill with 1 Q coming through for Kissy ADC. Makai is keeping the fight going, dives on in with the Hextech ultimatum, locks down onto Extorted, but then breaks it to get them out of there. Extorted now is in charge of clearing away this wave, but is very frightened of Kissy, has to back on away. Ends up being a 2-for-1 in favor of the Nameless Thieves. That double up doing so much work for
Kissy ADC, a real monster now, well on their way to a second item here, and we see in turn a really nice set of adaptations coming from the side of Nameless Thieves in regards to their build. Obviously, Camille kind of doing their own thing right now, rotating when need be here with the Divine Sunderer in the kit, but I'm really liking the choice of this Everfrost onto the side of Silas to help the carries in the forms of Kindred and Misfortune really be able to pop off. Kindred will be able to stay on top of people a little bit better, and obviously the route into bullet time is just a dream combo between Silas and Misfortune, and the fact that they're down a little bit of CS from that rough laning phase means that they're able to still remain utile and valuable as we start to this mid game up. I think I may be alone here for a second, but for the time being, I think that the game is most definitely going in favor of Nameless Thieves, but we are seeing ways in which Akuma Katanas are able to kind of build their way back. that big fight at the Dragon has definitely cost them, and it means that we will be seeing Akuma Katanas play a little bit less aggressively around these neutral objectives unless we see a pick or we see a really big engage come through for them. But in turn, this means that for this time being, in this minute before the Dragon comes up, I really want to see Akuma Katanas really vie for vision, find the gaps in the armor of Nameless Thieves, and try to dictate the battlefield so that it is a little bit more accommodating for them, and the fact that they are now behind about 4,500 gold.
Yeah, absolutely here. As I reconnect to the Discord, no idea what's going on with this one over these last couple of streams. But now, moving on into the red side jungle here is going to be the side of the Nameless Thieves. They've got another dragon spawning in 30 seconds. They want to get themselves their first Hex Tech. Sure that Akuma Katanas want to be able to say the same. They're moving Klexo over towards this side of the map. That's going to be the Hextech Ultimatum thrown down here onto Soli. They're trying to take the Braum out before the fight gets started. They are going to be able to do so. Kissy goes on a rampage there, and now this is going to be a 4v5 here for the Akuma Katanas, trying to set on up for this dragon fight, and they've got a Rift Herald crashing in mid. Their options are just so limited. They're getting forced farther back. Dive on in from Kai, going to take a lot of damage there. That's going to be a big Chaos Storm chunking everybody out so low. Kissy ends up falling on down. Doubtful is able to turn that into a kill in the top side as well, up against Bashful. Now it's going to be a 1-for-1. Now here comes the trade going on forward. Extorted trying to get here on to any other targets. It's a 2-for-2. Klexo and Doubtful are down. Kissy and Bashful say the same. Soli has respawned here. No Flame Top Brain has to retreat back into the base, and that means that Nameless Thieves are going to be able to pick up this dragon. But still a nicely played fight by Akuma Katanas.
Klexo walking a little bit too far forward there at the very end, but given the fact that they are behind, Akuma Katanas are really finding ways back into this one. Even with Soli gone, they waited for the engage from Kai after that mid-tier 1 fell, and in turn were able to turn things around. The fact that Kissy ADC went down amidst her ultimate being dropped means that you're able to really kind of cut off a big source of damage on the side of Nameless Thieves early on, and that gave a lot more room for Klexo and Doubtful to shine, even as they went down later on as that fight progressed.
Yeah, definitely here. It's now going to be the siege in the mid lane. It's still a substantial gold lead over to the side of the Nameless Thieves, about 5k, and that's still going to be enough to spin a lot of these fights in their favor. A little bit of over-aggression in that last fight. They tank a lot of damage from Klexo's Chaos Storm, and he is pretty much the strongest member here on the side of the Akuma Katanas. He's well farmed. He's gotten a lot of kills. Very, very good damage output there if he's able to layer down his abilities. Kai finding an angle in this bottom lane to try to lock down No Flame Top Brain. Doesn't look like he's going to pursue it any farther, though. No commitment of the ultimate. Doesn't think he can really one-shot this Gragas, and he's probably right about that.
Yeah, Gragas going for that chem tank build means that the chances of a one-shot probably are low, and given the fact that he holds that explosive cask, it would be very, very difficult to contain and sustain a fight against them as Chen goes in topside.
Yeah, Chen trying to make something happen here up against Klexo, but again, just taking so much damage from the Chaos Storm is going to turn it into a 1-for-1 by hijacking away a Chaos Storm of his own. Is going to be a trade of mid laner for mid laner, as now this is going to be the fight set up in the bottom lane. No Flame gets a little bit of a lockdown there onto Kai, trying to get the fight started. Soli is showing on up as well, but without that explosive cask, it's really tough for these guys to get this fight started. They really want the other team coming into them, and they don't really have a lot of engage tools for themselves. And so the Akuma Katana is going to be forced to let the Nameless Thieves escape here. Nice little interrupt onto Kissy, going to slow their ability to reset, but again, no real engage to be followed up on.
And the question is, will that lack of engage really begin to come through and hurting the Akuma Katanas? They are down by 1 dragon so far, and we kind of saw the lack of engage come to hurt them in that big virtual ace that we saw come through in that earlier fight for the Hextech Drake. So I guess for me, I'm just wondering if we'll be seeing Akuma Katanas kind of continue to play in the side lanes and try to both defend against the big pushes we're seeing coming through from the likes of Kai, while also going for picks of their own, or will they be kind of really putting it all in on the chem tank and on the explosive cask in the form of Gragas alongside Soli and his abilities in order to try to get a fight going?
Yeah, that is definitely the question here. No Flame Top Brain needs to get some kind of explosive cast off for them to really be looking to engage these fights, or some kind of flash body slam. Something like that to get Kai locked on down here. Is Doubtful coming on in along with Extorted. Kai going to sneak on out of there. The flash in from Soli, though. There goes the ultimate to lock him on down, and Extorted going to be able to finish off that kill with the Gale Force. Now it is going to be a 5v4 on the map in favor of the Akuma Katanas. We'll see what else they're going to be able to get at here. Moving towards the top side, maybe Baron going to be in the cards, but it's only a 30-second death timer, and Kai does have access to the teleport. We'll see what they try to do, what trigger they try to pull here, as Kissy and Bashful are just doing their best to keep the mid-wave shoved on in and limit the options of the Akuma Katanas.
Yeah, I think Katanas right now just have to kind of go for establishing dominance over the lanes and getting these wave pushed out before this dragon spawns in about a minute here. Any of the bigger objectives on the map, such as the Baron, are probably a little bit out of reach. They're definitely respecting the presence that the other 4 members of Nameless Thieves have, but also that fact of Kai having that Unleashed teleport up still really going to be a big factor in dictating the ways in which Akuma Katanas are going to try to push this momentary advantage.
Definitely here. Dragon spawning in about 30 seconds. Nameless Thieves going to once again be wanting to stamp their name or lack thereof onto that dragon if they can. But gonna be tough for them to really get in here if this side of Akuma Katanas can set on up first. But it looks like they've snuck their way on through. That means they should be the ones to start this one on up. Kai looking for a flank on the backside. Would run into Doubtful if he jumped over the wall here. Would be a one-on-one he could certainly win. Bashful goes in for the engage. Doesn't get the stun onto anybody, but there's a big bullet storm coming on in here. Gonna melt on through Soli, but that's the only target who's fallen on down. Klexo trying to kite this one out with the Chaos Storm, but so far is just chunked so far out of this fight, and Strova finds his angle to just dive on forward and clean up the kills. Klexo, the last man standing here at single-digit HP. The auto attacks from the minions are going to be enough to clear it on up. That's going to be an ace. 5 for 1 coming on through for the Nameless Thieves.
And this is almost an exact replay of the kind of fight around Dragon that we saw earlier. And Gordo, I think that what you brought up and what we kind of expanded on there with the lack of engage potential from Akuma Katana's draft is really starting to come through and hurt their chances here in this game. They were just kind of set there confused and looking for a way in. And meanwhile, we see Silas just stealing big engage ultimates, as well as Bashful Iceberg standing there just waiting for the Solar Flare to decide the team fight in favor of Nameless Thieves. So, going forward, now that they're on the defense, we'll be seeing the side of Akuma Katanas look to turtle up here, and they're basically just praying for overextensions from the likes of Kai or Chenchin, someone who has to really go in order to start a fight up, in order to maybe get something back on their board in their favor.
Definitely what I'm going to be on the lookout for here. Strova showing in that last fight, he is just so strong here, fully online, 3.5 items completed. Compare that to the 2.5 that Extorted is bringing to the table. And this is a true ADC coming on in from the jungle position. And when Strova gets his fight line set up appropriately, when he doesn't have any threats on top of him, he can just completely dominate those fights as he just did. Now, gonna really need to be some kind of answer coming on through from the side of the Akuma Katanas. That's kind of the way they want their fights to play out. They want the members of the Nameless Thieves to be walking into them, but they need to be able to get them more effectively locked down, as that's gonna be Doubtful finding an angle to just one-shot there onto Kissy. But meanwhile, the fight's starting out for the side of the Nameless Thieves on the top side. Teleport in, though, from No Flame top lane. They've caught them with their pants down, and they are just destroying them. 4 kills going on over to the side of the Akuma Katanas. Klexo, the only one who's going to end up falling on down. Kai, the only one left standing, and this should be Baron for the Akuma Katanas, Nyarko.
And just like that, they find those overextensions in order to get a pick going. I think that the Gale Force from Doubtful, combined with that phase rush, basically allowed for him to suffocate and burst out Kissy ADC, who was alone right there. And in turn, the movements that we saw on the top side of the map, just going a little bit too deep there for Nameless Thieves, has really just shifted the tide of the game. I think that we're going to continue to see the same issues that we've been discussing regarding the lack of big engage potential from the side of Akuma Katanas, especially as we still have Soul Point, the win condition for Nameless Thieves. But at the same time, this is definitely a time in which Akuma Katanas can kind of breathe a sigh of relief and hopefully get some towers down and get themselves back on the board regarding this gold gap.
No, just a great comeback here from the Akuma Katanas thus far. You can see how comfortable they all are playing together, showing a little bit of the veterancy there. This five-man squad been together for 2 years now. They are able to weather any storm, up to and including being down 5k here earlier on. Haven't given over the soul yet, haven't given over the Baron either. They bend, but they don't break. And they are doing a great job now of pushing their way back into this game. Kai is on the split push in the top lane, but is at risk of losing an inhibitor turret. Here comes Chen Chen, looking for a little bit of a flank, steals away the Chaos Storm, but nobody can stop this siege. Nobody is willing to challenge this five-man squad of the Akuma Katanas as they claim themselves the mid lane inhibitor. Now, is anybody going to get back and deal with Kai? No, they're going to keep the push going. Bullet Time comes on in. He's going to deal a whole bunch of damage. No Flame tries to force his way on in, knocks Kissy back into the team. Can they one-shot him? They get him pretty low there, but he manages to make his way back into the Lamb's Respite. Now Flexo's the one getting locked down here by Chen Chen. Chen Chen going to be able to finish off that kill. Meanwhile, it's been a trade back there, at least going to finish off Bashful Iceberg, but this fight has been failed by the Akuma Katanas, and now they need to get back to answer Kai in their base, who's trying to finish on off the game. The turnaround from Extorted, though, gets a triple kill, and Doubtful has been able to get back into the base and force back this Camille. Kai now has to head for the hills. Meanwhile, Extorted keeps the push going, is going to look to end the game. If Doubtful can keep marking Kai, then this is going to be a chance for Extorted to actually end.
Extorted has a lot of work, both of those towers full and no waves, yeah. Unfortunately, I think that is just going to kind of end in the pretty bizarre and explosive equilibrium from both sides here. Big pushes, and we definitely could have seen both teams go for their respective fights with a little bit more balance, as we see Bashful Iceberg maybe getting caught out on that Hex Gate.
Yeah, Doubtful's got a lot of damage here. He's working his way through the health bar of this Leona. He's got Infinity Edge completed. Extorted coming on through. Going to take that Leona off the map for 40 seconds. That's well and truly after the Dragon's already going to be down. This is going to be Dragon coming on up for the Akuma Katanas here. No steal opportunity available. They're sending Klexo up to the top lane saying, hey man, you got the best wave clear. You keep this wave away from our single Nexus turret. They are going to be able to claim this Dragon. Let's see what else they're able to do from there.
I think that for the time being, if you're Akuma Katanas, you just gotta retreat. You got what you came for here, and given how deeply pushed your top side of the map became, you can't really risk much of a fight to try to turn things and get a rundown mid going. Overall, though, Akuma Katanas definitely been having a pretty valuable last few minutes. Maybe they could have sent someone back to deal with Kai before that split push really got out of control. Maybe they could have kept one of their Nexus turrets up. But I think that the hope from here on out is to leverage this newfound momentum across the map to frankly prevent the ability from Kai to ever get another split push going. They're really starting to show with that big fight that they took in the base of the Nameless Thieves that they have the ability to really steamroll 5v4 encounters if it is the case that we don't see the top laner for Nameless Thieves actually showing up to these group meetings.
Definitely here. Set up on the top side, up around this Baron. You can see that's where everybody's eyes are. Multiple pink wards thrown on down here by the Akuma Katanas. Really just trying to keep and maintain control over their top side river to be able to prepare for what is certainly going to be a big Baron fight breaking out sometime soon. Kai splitting in the bot lane, but No Flame top lane is prepared to answer as the items are coming on in across the board. Getting these champions stronger and stronger. Strova going in for the Warden's Mail there, trying to prevent himself from getting one shot by the damage that this Xayah and this Graves bring to the table.
already on 4 items. I like the choice that Strova made to decide to go for this Warden's Mail here. I think that they have the gold advantage from that big CS gap in the jungle to really kind of be able to invest in a little bit more defensiveness, especially given how explosive the output from Extorted and Doubtful has been. Not to mention the fact that Klexo is a powerhouse within themselves.
For sure here. Tons of on my way pings going on all over this map. It's going to be the squad of the Nameless Thieves retreating here, getting their likely last recall off on before this Baron gets started. 30 seconds to go. Meanwhile, going to be a recall from the side of No Flame top lane. He finishes on off the Thorn Mail. Now it's coming to regroup with the rest of the squad. It is going to be the Akuma Katanas setting up first, though, and that is what their team composition wants to do. They want this side of the Nameless Thieves to be coming into them so they can make most use of their Victor, most use of their Braum, most use of their Graves, most use of their Xayah. Every champion wants to be able to find the Nameless Thieves coming on in through a corridor. Let's see if they're able to get that set up.
Going to be a real tense situation. I frankly don't really have a call on who is able to win this team fight. It really will come down to the engage and the group composition for either side here. We see a really big distribution of damage and itemization kind of go back and forth between Akuma Katanas and Nameless Thieves right here. We have a Flame Horizon to mid laner, but we also have a big Kindred there in the jungle on the side of Nameless Thieves, as we see a big rotation now as 5 from both sides here, really wanting to work for this Baron as the deciding factor in this game.
Yeah, and it's the mid-priority from the Nameless Thieves. They're trying to force the hand of the Akuma Katanas to come in here and try to answer them so they get this nice, clean little path into the Baron through the long brush. They are going to get that one. Now they're the ones with control over the river. They could start clearing on out the vision. As Akuma were forced to answer that wave. They still have this Ward of the Pink Brush to see where most things are going on. Solely going to throw on up his shield, try to defend himself from Kissy's damage. Will be able to do that for now, but still, it's the Nameless Thieves keeping this wave pushed on in, trying to find an opportunity to go on in here. Recalls being channeled now for the side of the Akuma Katanas. A restock on wards for Soli as he's trying to sneak his way back in here before the fight breaks out.
And we're starting to see the double squeeze regarding objectives beginning to creep into the minds of both teams here. 45 seconds or so until the dragon comes up. And if this goes into the hands of Nameless Thieves, that'll really allow for them to further impact team fights. That is going to be that Hex Tech Soul with that static shift passive, going to provide a lot of value over to their side, especially given how strong we've seen their team fights being so far.
There's the engage coming on through, but it might be Bashful Iceberg engaging a little bit too far. They're going to respond with a kill of their own, though, onto No Flame. The stasis keeping the side of Kai alive for so very long here. Doubtful and Klexo are kiting on back, but they've already lost Extorted. They've already lost the rest of their squad. It's only these two standing up against the 4 members of the Nameless Thieves who succeed in their fight. They get the engage they were looking for, and they're going to turn it into Dragon Soul.
Soul at the very least. It'll be interesting to see if we'll see a rotation coming out of the side of Nameless Thieves up towards the Baron. Extorted and Soul still done for about 30 seconds each, but a lot of low players here. It looks like it's going to be the Soul forms of Kissy, ADC, and Strova moving up towards the Baron, maybe to just establish vision more than anything else here.
10 seconds to go on No Flame. He's going to have access to that teleport if they do want to try to challenge this Baron, but they have no vision, and they know they're at such a substantial numbers disadvantage. They're going to end up having to give this one on up. They do see this Silas coming on through the Hex Gate. Doubtful tries to punish, knows he has a whole bunch of bursts, but there's the rest of the team coming to group up onto him. Hextech Ultimatum gets thrown on down, and Doubtful is going to lose his life for it. Big shutdown goes over to Kai, and with that Graves off the map, it's a 5 versus 4 push for the Nameless Thieves, getting started with the Soul and the Baron at their backs.
Yeah, you're going to see Akuma Katanas really get into emergency mode now. The 5v5 didn't go in their direction, and Nameless Thieves have just frankly power spiked heavily since then, with both the Baron buff at their backs alongside the Dragon Soul being claimed here. So with that in mind, I think that they're going to at least give up this inhibitor and really just pray and hope that that Nexus Tower that we see standing there alone and afraid will be their salvation. Inhibitor gonna go down here, and it looks like they're getting enough damage down to kind of de-push for the time being. Nameless Thieves going to regroup here. There's definitely a lot of gold on all of them, most of them not having backed since that big team fight mid.
The Akuma Katanas are very unfavored from this position, but they are certainly going to force the Nameless Thieves to work for it. They've done a great job of dragging this game out, of keeping it competitive. They're going to look for a pick on a Chen there. He's just going to scoot away with the Abscond of Duct. We'll jump over into that Dragon Pit, and now we got 4 minutes to go. No major objectives on the map. It's just on the Akuma Katanas to try to farm up and try to survive the forthcoming siege.
And for the time being, it looks like they're pushing out pretty well. The fact that it is only that top inhibitor down is basically a blessing in disguise for their side. It's going to allow for them to stay pretty resilient here. They still have the ability to present a united front here in the mid lane, and it gives them a bit of a buffer before you have Nameless Thieves truly knocking on their Nexus's door here.
Yeah, definitely here. The Baron minions coming on in. Klexo trying to get a little poke damage there off of the laser. Going to mostly be shrugged on off those. You got to keep an eye on this Chain Lightning. Does a lot of damage, does a lot of slowing, and is going to let it be a lot easier for the Nameless Thieves to be able to start off this fight. There's going to be No Flame coming on in. Gets the barrel onto Kissy, going to force him into the stasis. Can they get the fall off lockdown? There's going to be the Lamb's Respite, trying to keep the team alive, firing off the bullet time off the backside, but the AoE damage as soon as the Lamb's Respite ends is huge. He's going to finish off on a Kissy, is going to finish off onto Bashful, but now it's already Klexo and Soli down. No Flame is very low as well. Extorted is left out in the middle of nowhere, flashes in to try to make it a trade, is going to be able to finish off onto Stroba, but now it's a 1 versus 2 here for Doubtful, and he cannot stand up to Kai. He's gonna fall on down, and this is gonna be game number 1 going over to the Nameless Thieves.
A clean utilization of Baron and great mental fortitude in face of that engage from No Flame top brain there by the Nameless Thieves. Misfortune dropping that stasis, but after utilizing it and getting their team around them, we saw Kissy ADC being able to move back deeper into the Lamb's Respite and then drop a big ultimate of their own, where ultimately, although she went down at the end of the day, that led to enough damage coming out from the likes of Strova to really seal that game number 1 away for the Nameless Thieves.
The Zonia's Misfortune text ends up coming up huge there, letting her stay alive just as long as she needs to, thwarting the engage attempt there by No Flame top brain, and Nameless Thieves finally managed to navigate their way through the rest of the fight. The Dragon Soul certainly doing a lot to spin that one back in their favor. Great positioning on their team fight, and finally being able to close out here up against the Akuma Katanas, but a great job of trying to remain steadfast and keep that game going from the side of Akuma. They just end up losing out on it on the very end, but a banger game number 1 and starting to set up for a very exciting game number 2.
Yeah, most definitely. I loved the fact that we saw Akuma Katanas keeping it close even after a few of these big missteps throughout the entirety of game number 1 here. 2 dragon fights just going absolutely terribly for them, leading to basically aces and big pickups of neutral objectives on the side of Nameless Thieves. But they also were able to really capitalize in cases in which Nameless Thieves overstepped their boundaries a little bit. We saw the likes of Kissy ADC getting caught out there in the jungle around the Baron pit in about the halfway point throughout the game. So with that in mind, there's still a lot really going for Akuma Katanas. If we see a better draft phase out of them, if we see them get a little bit more engaged priority in their composition, I think that this will be a hard-fought victory for the side of Nameless Thieves, and we're going to be seeing a lot more contestation here in Game 2.
Yeah, excited to check out what's going to happen there. We're going to throw it to a quick break while we get into draft for game number 2. But don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back to see how the side of the Akuma Katanas intends to respond, or if the Nameless Thieves are going to be able to close this one out.
Everybody, hold on. I'm about to say something really cool. 3, 41, 9, and lift off! No one dies screaming without me. I feel like I forgot to shoot something. You're starting to bore me. She's such a loser, always ready to cry. Da, 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 da. come on. What's the worst that could happen?
Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Vanguard League, Week 6 of our regular season, where the Nameless Thieves are now up 1-0 over the Akuma Katanas here. A little bit of an upset to start us off the night, Nyarko. Nameless come in here at 3-2. The Akuma Katanas come in at 5-0, looking to move up to 6-0, and are now, just one game away from giving up their first loss of the season.
And that was only their third round dropped in this entire season so far. Nameless Thieves really kind of putting on a clinic there regarding the way that they leverage their team comp advantages to come through with the win. One of the things that we really saw throughout the entirety of that game was Nameless Thieves using priority over the Dragon Pit and neutral objectives in general to kind of force Akuma Katanas into uncomfortable situations where their lack of true engage really began to hurt them. In turn, you had so much lockdown from the likes of the Leona on the side of Nameless Thieves to really allow for Kissy, ADC, and Strova to just drop the damage down. And even though we saw Chen Chen struggle in the matchup against Klexo throughout the early and mid game, the ability for Nameless Thieves to really kind of leverage positional advantages brought them to victory as we start to see the bans really beginning to come through here in round 2.
Yeah, this is going to be the first change up from game number 1. The Kindred going to be banned away instead of the Tom Kench. Nameless going to keep the exact same bans, but Akuma, they're going to slam that Xin Zhao right away. They've given up on the Graves nonsense. They want to get themselves some early ganking power for Doubtful, and it is going to take the form of that Xin Zhao this time around. He's been a little bit nerfed on this patch, has actually lost a substantial bit of win rate as they took a second off of his ulti duration and gave him a little bit of extra cooldowns elsewhere as well, but clearly Doubtful not dissuaded by that. He's going to lock it on in here first.
Yeah, Zinny Z being an early quick lock in here. As you said, those nerfs have definitely impacted them in solo queue, but I do think that the loss of a second on ult duration is not necessarily as harmful when it comes to coordinated play, where fights are typically a little bit less drawn out. They're very explosive, and we see really good positioning, so hopefully Xin Zhao will still be able to level the considerable early game pressure that they provide in the hands of Doubtful to come through and really help Akuma Katanas claw back here in game number 2. As we see Karma Gwen already picked up on the side of Nameless Thieves. Gwen, another nerf champion, also seeing a big drop in their win rate this patch here. That loss of auto attack range on that E has really become a bane of players both in the jungle and top side of the map, and it looks like we might actually be getting a hover of Warwick on the side of Akuma Katanas, where if that went through, we'll probably be seeing it top, but the Lulu is going to be what is confirmed at the end of the day.
Yeah, they're messing with us. There's been a couple of Rammus hovers in there too. I don't believe them. I don't believe them for a second until I see it locked on in. But that is going to be another Warwick hover that we're not taking seriously. But the Lulu is going to be locked on in there. Going to be that Enchanter support to match up against the Karma. Going to be a little bit weaker in the early game, but is going to scale just fine. And it's going to be bringing that giant growth to the later fights. Interested to see what we see locked on in here. Traditionally we see an 80 carry in these spots. This Rammus is getting hovered for a real long time. It is going to get locked in. As I've been talking a little bit too much trash about the Armadillo, it is actually going to end up coming on through here.
Yeah, what's really scary is the fact that we're getting a Teemo hover back.
It's a Felios.
It's a Felios. Darn.
The chat, they're messing with us. It's a Felios.
No, I thought they were going to play an auto-filled helicopter and take Rammus mid or something crazy like that, but I don't. If something happened with the draft lull, that might also explain why we're seeing the Teemo being hovered for so long on the side of Nameless Thieves, being swapped over the last second for the misfortune there. Gonna be going into the hands of Kissy ADC for a second time.
Yep, I'm gonna type into the Twitch chat here that Rammus equals a Felios for anybody confused. And I'm very sad. They baited me. I was talking the whole time about how they were baiting me, and then they lock it in, and I let myself get baited. And of course, it's not actually Rammus. It is in fact going to be the Aphelios. Warwick band being hovered. We're not even paying attention to that stuff. I do like the Aphelios lock in here for the side of Akuma. I was talking at the beginning of the night about how we might see some more non-traditional bot laners, and the Misfortune definitely fulfilled that request. The Aphelios, not so much, but it is a really strong pick. to see, and it is going to be interesting to watch it face off up against this Misfortune, who is going to be, a little bit more lane dominant early on, and really was piloted very well by Kiss the ADC, I must say, in game number 1. Now is getting paired up with this Karma rather than the hard engage with Leona. The Gwen as well in the top lane, not really going to represent a lot of CC for it, so I'm curious to see how they round on out this draft to try to make the most out of their Misfortune lock-in.
And an Ahri ban going to be closing out what is removed from the pool this second game through. I like that being removed from the slots. Chen has played the Ahri in the past here, and even in solo queue as well. And broadly, it's a very strong champion. It's something else that has been nerfed in 12.5, but honestly, I don't think that that's truly really shown, especially in the early to mid game. Her ability to just engage with R, get that charm off, and then get it reset to continue to wreak havoc on the field means that it's a very nice thing to take out of the pool, as we see the Udyr of all champions coming through onto the side of Nameless Thieves.
That one's not a goof. That's actually real. That got locked on in. That's a good champion right now, and I'm not surprised at all to see Strova pick it on up. Gonna be a little bit of hard CC on a stick there with the flash bear slaps that do get to grace our screens. The Corki gonna get locked on in here now for the side of Klexo. Excited to see him on a little bit more of a big playmaker than the Victor. He had a great Victor game, but it's hard to, kind of transition that Victor gold lead into solo carrying the game when the rest of your team is so far behind and there's so much dive over on the other side. Now on the Corki, he's got a little bit more of an opportunity to make some big package plays. He's got a lot of range, and now this is now fully a poke comp from the side of Akuma. I like this decision to the last rotation here with 4 champions already locked in for the side of the Nameless Thieves and pretty low engage in CC all around. They pivot right here and they go into a poke composition with the Corki Jace lock in, and now it's very, very tough for the side of Nameless to really respond to this in turn. You really want to answer this with something like a hard engage, with something like a Hecarim, but they've got their Udyr. Now they've only got a mid laner left to go. They're gonna have to settle for the Seraphine, but it's gonna be tough to answer really the poke power that Corki and Jace bring into the game if it's at kind of an even state. You can immune some of it with Gwen, you can shield some of it with Seraphine and Karma, but you can't really force the issue unless you get Udyr on in there.
Oh yeah, and I definitely like this pivot you're talking about on the side of Akuma Katanas. You don't have as much range now coming through on the side of Nameless Thieves, especially versus stuff like the Jace, who can really be putting on the poke and damage from pretty far away, as well as the fact that you have a considerable amount of anti-dive in the form of that Lulu being able to W the likes of Udyr or Gwen once they do try to approach. I think that we're seeing a much more confident and strong draft from the blue side here. Now, for the side of Nameless Thieves, I do think that there are a few different possibilities for them to go for the current draft, but honestly, my big brain thought here at the end, well, I'm self-describing as big brain, maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, Gordo, would be maybe take that Karma mid, put it in the hands of Chen, and then go back to the Leona just to try to get some lockdown going so Udyr and Gwen can actually begin to approach and affect Akuma Katana's side. For the time being, I just don't really know how they're going to be able to get into a team fighting position unless you actually get Seraphine dropping a really solid ultimate down onto the field.
Yeah, I think that would have been an interesting flex to see coming on in. They are going to likely still have options to being able to get on into these fights. They have Karma Udyr still. They are still going to be able to mantra people in. They're going to have the bear run on in, and that's going to indeed extend the range for the Encore as well. So they still have ways to get fights started, but it is going to be a little bit more difficult than it might have been in other drafts. The real key to the game here, where if they had locked in like a Trundle here, if they had locked in, like another Kindred, something of that sort here on R4, that's where this kind of rotation from Akuma really kind of puts you in the dumpster. The Udyr gives them the chance to still be able to get these fights started where they want, and the shielding that they're going to be able to present with the Seraphine and the Karma should be able to get them at least somewhat healthier.
Yeah, and on second thought, I'm sitting here and looking at the side of Nameless Thieves, and I honestly think we might still see the Karma mid. Seraphine's nerfs to the way that she works in solo lanes makes her a really odd pickup, especially given the fact that you see how Akuma Katana's team shaped up there. And so putting her in her kind of diminished state there into the mid lane, into the likes of a Corki, and basically giving Corki a lot of priority to just kind of free farm and really scale up into the monster that he can become early, makes me kind of pause and wonder what Nameless Thieves is going to do to adjust to this pick in general. I think we'll probably be seeing W Max regardless of where she goes, especially after Q. But I'm also wondering if we might be seeing a full supportive build coming out. Chen is going to be put on the Seraphine, it looks like, from the client itself. That would put a lot of burden on Gwen and Misfortune to really be the true damage dealers on the team, and that might take away from Kai's ability to side lane here. But just overall, I'm just a lot less satisfied with how Nameless Thieves went through this draft versus last game.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a well-piloted draft here from the Akuma Katanas. They got their power early on, and I do really like, this aspect of the meta. We see even at the pro level, this flip into the Corki Jace here on blue 4, blue 5. It is, it's an established maneuver, but it's one that I'm really happy to see out of the Akuma Katanas here. They executed as a team very effectively last game. They were really good at being able to kind of draw these fights out for a long time. You think about the Baron dances that they had where they kept dipping back into the river and then going back into mid lane to clearing out the wave that Nameless was pushing in and back into the river up until they found a fight that is really what they were looking for. I think that kind of play style is really going to help them out with this composition here, where they've got this kind of Aphelios, Jace, Corki setup, where they want to be kind of dipping and diving back on and playing to the max of their ranges and poking away at this squad of the Nameless Thieves. Really excited to see how they're going to be able to pilot here in game number 2.
Yeah, and this is not to say that Nameless Thieves doesn't have a lot of potential as well. I know I knocked on this draft a little bit here, but Bashful Iceberg still has the ability to get some big slows off, and especially if we see something like the Corki overstep, that W can be a real big boon in locking down some of the carries on the side of Akuma Katanas. And likewise, if Udyr gets a flank off or Gwen gets a flank off and we get this approach started with Needlework coming down, slowing a lot of the members of Akuma Katanas, this is going to be a bloodbath at close range.
Yeah, definitely is going to be here. You gotta believe that the Akuma Katanas would rather it not get to close range, but they definitely have some tools to be able to tussle there. The Xin Zhao Lulu duo, the Aphelios, if he's able to get the Chakram stacked up, there's definitely going to be options that they have available to themselves in those situations. Really curious to see how these fights are going to be able to get started for the Nameless Thieves. Seeing a lot of talk in Twitch chat about the double Moonstone approach, if that's what they end up going for. But I wonder if they end up taking at least one of their picks on towards something like the Shirelias, so that they actually have the ability to get Udyr into these fights. If they don't have one of those, it feels like it's going to be tough to ever really close the gap up against the squad here of the Akuma Katanas. And if you're not already in an advantaged situation where you're the one who's kind of got priority over the objective, you're going to need to be able to get those fights started somehow.
Yeah, a lot of different possibilities throughout this game, both in terms of build path as well as just general strategy. Going to really be an interesting first few minutes to open up the game with, see who gets priority and see how maybe gold going one way or the other will determine builds, especially in that mid lane there with the Seraphine. Are they going to opt towards something a little bit cheaper? Chen did something similar in the first game where they decided to go for that Everfrost and just played a bit more supportive, acting as lockdown for Kissy ADC and Strova. Could be the case that we see that again here, but overall, Gordo, where are you looking at and how are you feeling about this second round?
Yeah, I mean, I like the move that the Akuma Katanas have gone for here. I'm curious to see if the Nameless Thieves are going to be able to get the fight started that they want to, or if they're going to be able to get, enough of a lead on Gwen on this split push here to where it's going to be difficult for Akuma to really deal with it. The goal of the Jace is to win the lane hard enough that that's not really a risk. So top lane definitely going to be where my eyes are going to be, at least for this early game. We're going to throw it to a quick break here while we get loaded onto the Rift for game number 2. and we're going to be right back to see if the Nameless Thieves are going to be able to close out this series in 2, or if the Akuma Katanas are going to take us to a Game 3. Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Vanguard League, where the Akuma Katanas are reprising their role on the blue side to take on the Nameless Thieves here, who are now up 1-0 in this series. They're halfway there to knocking down the Akuma Katanas' perfect 5-0 record and moving themselves up to 4-2 while they're at it. So definitely a noble goal here from the side of the Nameless Thieves would get them very close towards those top two in the standings and make it a lot easier for them to be able to make their way right into those playoffs. But, you know, got to be able to close on out the series to get there. And Kai going to skip and slash his way away from No Flame Top Brain to start it on off.
I think we're going to be seeing a pretty balanced opening to the game here. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Not a lot of real big invade potential from either side here. Maybe you gamble it all on Chen Chen going for E start and hoping to get a route down. But I'm liking how we're seeing things begin to shape up here. We're seeing that longsword 3-pot spy on both sides, something that Kissy ADC also opted for last time around instead of going for the refillable. That just gives a little bit more survivability early on in this lane, which I think is going to be really valuable given the fact that we have that Aphelios versus MF matchup there in the bot side of the map. Meanwhile, we're seeing both junglers beginning to start on the top side here, rotating down. A lot of bot priority has been the name of the game here in Season 12, and I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon, especially given the fact that you have a lot of volatility with that lane bully in the form of Karma there early on.
Yeah, definitely going to be a little bit of a strength there for the bottom side on the Nameless Thieves. Going to be interested to see how Kissy and Bashful are going to be able to navigate this. They got themselves a substantial CS lead on the Misfortune in game number 1, and that was with the Zaya having been picked into it. So it was an opted into matchup from the side of Akuma, and still did not really work out in their favor. This time Extorted is going for the Aphelios instead. This time was picked blind, was not selected was selected prior to the Misfortune, but we'll see if that matchup ends up working out a little bit better for the Akuma bottom lane. Meanwhile, this top lane, NoFlame, taking no break here, immediately going to start shoving in this wave towards Kai to try to get himself an advantage.
Yeah, Gwen is not a champion that is too torn up about farming under tower or at about 2/3 of the lane. But at the same time, you really want Jace to get a ton of priority early here, start being able to poke down under tower and maybe set up for the likes of a dive, especially when Doubtful navigates back towards this lane. Looks like they're instead going to be going for a cheater recall here, going to just continue to allow for Jace to exert a lot of pressure there in that lane.
Yep, goes on in, refills his refillable potions, gets himself onto Sword plus tier, and now is going to be returning to the lane. Calling that one a success for himself. Slowly moving up into this river, keeping tabs on what's going on in the jungle department. Strova has already gotten that bottom lane scuttler. Looks like he's going to be able to pick up both. Doubtful is still working his way through his full clear, and has, fallen behind that speedy clear that the Udyr brings to the table. We'll see if he's going to be able to make that up in ganks. Has opted for the Ignite on the Xin Zhao this time around, so no flash going to be available for Doubtful's jungle.
And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out when we move into the ganking and team fighting phase of this game here. I think that the Ignite will provide a lot of kill pressure given that Doubtful will be able to get in. But the question of whether or not he'll continue to be able to stick onto people and get the engages that he wants really being brought into question by that selection in terms of summoner spells. I'm also kind of looking more broadly at just the picks that we see coming out from both sides here. I really actually am beginning to kind of warm to Chen Chen being put onto the Seraphine, especially given the way that they performed against Klexo last game. I think that they provided a lot of utility for the team on that Sylas, but did struggle a little bit with CSing and just picking up pressure early on. Seraphine is a champion that provides a ton of wave clear there in that mid lane, and I think that the ability to kind of allow Chen Chen to just drop a few Qs onto the minions and just get a bit more priority over the lane can be a real boon going forward and really play to their strengths of just being a great utility mid laner for the side of Nameless Thieves.
Definitely a good idea there. See if Chen Chen's able to really serve that utility role for the Nameless Thieves here. So far, no too much action to be coming on through. Strova comfortably clearing away his camps is well ahead of the side of Doubtful, as they are both going to run into each other towards this bottom side, it looks like. Doubtful wants to try to take the brawl, is down on a level but does have that Ignite. Meanwhile, in the top lane, NoFlame and Kai are going at it here, but Kai seems to have a little bit of an advantage. Now a dive on in the bottom side, trying to get on a Bashful Iceberg, who's going to back on away. Meanwhile, NoFlame going to be forced to flash in trade for Kai's Ghost. Will keep his life, but that is definitely not what you want to be happening in your Jace lane.
The fact that you're seeing a pretty decent balance of CS on either side is definitely a little bit worrisome here. Jace did have that early tier start, which means that maybe he isn't doing quite as much damage, especially combined with the opting into Adorn's Shield for Kai here, but it's also kind of demonstrating the fact that even with Adorn's Shield Gwen, the fact that you're getting these unfavorable trades and forcing out the summoner spells on the Jace may be something to watch out for going forward here as we see the Nameless Thieves rotate over for this first dragon.
Yeah, they are going to be able to pick that one on up. Strova claiming it for himself, solely moving on up to back up Doubtful, but, with that first gank in the bottom lane not working out, Doubtful already feeling the pressure a little bit here. Strova's going to outfarm him, and Strova, going to additionally have access to that Ghost in the later game, whereas he only has the Ignite. He really wants to use it to try to get one of his lanes super ahead early on. We'll see if he starts to path up towards the top lane and tries to make something happen.
I just found it adorable with Chen dropping down that poke onto Lulu and Sully just dropping a shield onto themselves, taking basically no damage as they clear out that control ward. Just really kind of showing the choices of itemization for Nameless Thieves, pushing Seraphine towards a supportive role that Banal Glass Mirror already built, implying we're either going to be seeing that Shirelia's or perhaps that Moonstone.
Yeah, definitely going to be potentially a double Moonstone look. Got to give it up to Twitch chat for calling that one here, as that will do a lot to nullify the poke that they've gone for here, to be able to potentially go double Moonstone here and really regenerate up a whole bunch of HP, keep themselves topped on off for the foreseeable future. We'll see if that is what ends up occurring here. Is going to leave them a little low on damage, but, you know, they can trust that their Gwen and their Misfortune are going to be able to make up in that department.
Kissy ADC provided so much damage last game that I think they're riding on that momentum to hopefully get a repeat performance out of their bot laner to cover up for the Seraphine's itemization choices.
Oh, it started though. Red and white guns going on in here. Gonna pop out the ultimate. One more auto, and that's gonna be first blood 2v1. Going over to the Akuma Katanas bot lane. Extorted, this time on a much better, comfortable pick up against the Misfortune, is going to come on out ahead.
Bakram, Rockham, Aphelios right there, putting the hurt down onto Kissy ADC and getting Flash Heal out as well in return for just a single flash onto the side of Akuma Katanas. A real big pickup in this early game for Extorted and Sully.
Yeah, huge here. Already a substantial CS lead onto the Aphelios. Now going to add 400 gold on top of that one. Bashful Iceberg trying to make something happen in the mid lane, but Klexo going to be just fine, collapsing his wave on in, going for the Hex Drinker here to make sure that he's going to be able to sustain up against this Seraphine's poke early on. Reminder, you know, it now takes 10 minutes to be able to access that package, so we'll have our eyes on that one once Corki gets access to it, what they're going to be able to make happen, what objectives they're going to try to make happen out of it, if he's going to try to roam towards one of the side lanes, or what it's going to be, as NoFlame continues to be struggling with this Gwen in the top lane. Again, really not how you want your Jace matchup to work out.
Yeah, NoFlame just basically forced to take even trains against Kai's Gwen here. Going to be problematic going forward, but I'm not necessarily in love with the Hex Drinker pickup early on Corki either. So maybe a little bit of an interesting itemization choice for the mid laner on the side of Akuma Katanas here, given the fact that we have a pretty low damage Seraphine coming through for Nameless Thieves, and I don't think we'll be seeing other AP threats, specifically Kai on that Gwen, really roaming down to the mid lane to contest Corki's farm early on.
That's fair. There is a substantial amount of magic damage also coming in from the Phoenix stance for Strova, but is definitely going to be a more defensive choice versus what else he could have gone for. That's going to be the ultimate thrown out by Extorted. Not going to land onto Kissy. Strut makes him a little bit too quick as he avoids that Vigil and is not going to get snared on up by the Gravitum. And that's going to nullify Doubtful's attempt here in the bottom lane. Still 0-0-0 on this Xin Zhao with the Ignite. 30 CS down nearly, really just getting outpaced by the Udyr, the power farming style coming up clutch here for Strova, as Doubtful just can't find any angles, can't find any opportunities.
Power farming, but also getting that Rift Herald down. We're going to be seeing Xin Zhao really start to struggle here as we pass this 10-minute mark without a successful gank coming through. Their presence on the map is just going to continue to diminish in the face of something like the Udyr, who's really beginning to kind of pick up that gold and truly begin itemizing towards these first few big items here. Bomby Cinder already going to be grabbed.
Yeah, 15 seconds to go on the next dragon. It does look like Strova is going to arrive in time. Doubtful is hanging out in the area, though, eventually looking for an opportunity to get a fight started. Not going to land. The wind becomes lightning there, and therefore just going to get forced back under the turret. Dragon now is alive. Strova is on that side of the map, as is Doubtful. We'll see what they end up going for. And NoFlame cannot find a chance to get these shockwaves in up against Kai. Every time we pan up towards the top lane, it feels like Kai is diving out of the way of one of those shock blasts, and you know, if you're not landing those, then you really are not winning up here.
And we're starting to see Kai really come into their own. That leeching leer, the first kind of mini spike in terms of Gwen's ability to actually dictate and begin to initiate here. They do have that needle work up. So if we see No Flame push up a little bit too far, we may be seeing some trouble. But in turn, Strova going to get a fight going.
Yeah, Strova just dominating up against No Flame here. Has so much gold, has so much damage, has so many levels. Just chasing down this Jace, who's really struggling to be able to get out in time. And there's going to be the damage from the Phoenix stance. Strova picks up the kill in the 1v1. Meanwhile, Plexo does the same in his lane. Extorted taking the fight here up against Bashful and Pissy, but it is going to be Bashful with the additional damage to turn it on around. Kills in the lanes across the board going to end up favoring Nameless Thieves more often than not, but Klexo trying to turn that one around. It's going to be solely flashing on in and using the growth to try to knock up on the Strova. Not going to be able to finish him off though. Now Klexo focusing out on the next target, who is going to be Kai. Kai going to dip back under the turret, going to be able to stay alive. Ends up being a 2-for-1. Doubtful though, not done yet. Dives on in up against Kai, has the ignite. Klexo fires one more rocket to be able to finish off that kill. Strova has now come on up to interrupt onto Doubtful. Doubtful throws on down the Crescent Guard to be able to stay alive. Now he's continuing to dive forward onto the Udyr, but is eventually going to burn on down to the damage from Chen Chen. Now Klexo focusing onto Chen Chen, going to be able to make that another kill for himself. Killing spree for the Corki has already finished the Maw. Is now 3-0, getting funneled kills up on this top side of the map and going to put Akuma Katanas back in the lead.
Yeah, we saw a good selection of fights being taken on the side of Nameless Thieves, but the kills being answered back, going on to the absolute worst choice here with Corki going up 3-0, going to be a huge threat going forward and going to really start hitting their stride a bit earlier than expected.
Yeah, Klexo taking a couple more turret shots there than he may have intended, as No Flame has rotated down towards the bottom lane and is likely about to be punished for it. Dashes on in onto Bashful, trying to get himself a little bit of distance, trying to proc that phase rush. Almost turns it around up against the Karma, but doesn't quite have the damage. Is going to end up falling on down as a result, and now here comes Extorted with the red and the white guns. Flashes simultaneously from Kissy and Extorted, but that's going to be the minion aggro. Ends up finishing off Bashful, giving the kill credit over to No Flame, but now Extorted getting chased back under his turret as Kai has teleported into the bottom lane. He is going to be able to avoid it for now. Is going to end up being a 1-for-1 here in the bottom lane with some extra gold going up towards No Flame top range.
I can't imagine that Bashful Iceberg was more than just a few fractions of a second off of getting E back up too. Really painful for the side of Nameless Thieves. They're losing their karma in that fight against Jace and Aphelios. Aphelios with those shock rooms up, and when they have those guns organized, really becoming a big threat here. Although it is kind of nice for them to get the flash out of their team.
Yeah. Is a little bit of a benefit there. Extorted, trying to clean it on up, doesn't end up being able to close the gap, but he's not going to get punished too heavily for it. Kai shrugs off the damage from that shock blast pretty effectively, but Doubtful is showing on up as is solely to try to keep the pressure onto this Gwen. Good knockback on in there from the Jace, going to mean that Doubtful going to be able to pick up that kill up against Kai, and now they can siege up onto this top lane turret. They can pick themselves on up the second Rift Herald. No more plates to be found, but the whole turret will certainly suffice.
And the fact that they're able to reestablish themselves on the map with a combination of this Rift Herald as well as Dragon number 2 means that Akuma Katanas have sidestepped some of the more worrying phases of the game. Obviously, they may have been looking for Doubtful to do a little bit more early on, but now you got the big Corki to answer back a lot of the problems that we saw coming through in the early game.
Yeah, Strova running real fast here. Top of the Ghost to try to make something happen to the bottom lane, but I guess didn't like the angle, as he ended up just backing away as soon as he got Glitter Lance. Next dragon spawning here in about a minute. They have been able to get one dragon apiece so far this game, so the quick dragon stack not going to be on the table here for the Nameless Thieves. Although their Udyr has been very ahead in the pathing game, is up 34 CS. You know, it's nearly 10 camps there. You're certainly going to be pretty happy about that one. Now, see what else he is able to get out of that advantage is Doubtful finally getting himself onto the board there in the top lane, able to make a couple of plays happen.
And I'm liking that Turbo Chem Tank picked up. That, alongside the fact that we have a Cloud Soul on the table, means we're going to have some exceptionally fast members on the side of Nameless Thieves if they are, in fact, able to land a 4th dragon pickup here in this game. Also, we have the Mantra E on the side of the Karma, also going to be able to come through and allow for Kai and Strova to really get there into the fight and stay in the thick of things. For the time being, though, we're pretty far off of that soul as we are looking just simply for one of the teams to pick up a second dragon here. Big rotation of Nameless Thieves.
Now here comes the rotation. Poke damage coming on in pretty strong from Akuma, but instead the turn back around from Kai here. Encore not going to end up landing onto anybody. There's a big package into the back line from Plexo, focusing on the Chen first and foremost, is going to chase him off on the backside, and now Kali going to be engaged on next, is going to fall on down. It's a 2 for 0 in favor of the Akuma Katanas. They claim themselves the mid lane turret as well while they're at it. Huge play off the back of this Dragon take from the side of the Nameless Thieves, and the hard engage from the Corky package ends up being the difference maker here, as those Moonstones do not do enough to keep yourself alive up against the full brunt force of the damage that Akuma Katanas brings to the fight.
And this is what we were talking about, Gordo, in terms of the Seraphine pick there in the mid lane. Your engage is so heavily reliant upon an Encore, hitting multiple members of Akuma Katanas, and we just saw that whole spell just straight up whiff, not getting a single person locked into a charm there, and that means that you see Klexo take the opportunity to jump in while cooldowns are hot. And wow, I mean, 2 kills going over to the side of Akuma Katanas. They couldn't pick up that dragon, but they're really beginning to pick up a gold lead here, and in turn, that'll just make it easier for them to reach for objectives later on. We're about a minute and a half off of the Baron spawn, and while I don't think we're going to see anyone getting it on cooldown here, we really are beginning to see advantages coming through for Akuma Katanas, and that might mean that their eyes are set on that purple worm next.
Yeah, and the double Moonstones are completed here for the side of the Nameless Thieves, so they really are looking to just sustain through the poke that the Akuma Katanas have brought to the table. You know, the cooldown on that package is going to be substantially longer now following those Corky nerfs, and if that's the only way they can really get to engage these fights, barring, you know, they don't have any flash engages from the Xinjiao, they would need the Whimsium on in there. Might be kind of tough for them to execute here. You know, I was a doubter as to whether or not the double Moonstone would be a successful answer here to this poke damage, but I've seen this Jace getting pretty much fully nullified by just 1 Moonstone. So now that there's 2 on the board, feels like it might actually be pretty tough for them to execute their game plan on the side of the Akuma Katanas.
Yeah, don't let the 0-3 record so far on Kai's Gwen fool you. Kai was in full advantage there in the early laning phase against the Jace, and what this means is that No Flame top lane is just simply not able to pick up enough gold to truly snowball and present that big kind of like 1 or 2 shot threat that he's able to from the back line of the side of Akuma Katanas over to the back line on the side of Nameless Thieves, as we see AKM beginning to move towards a siege here on the bot side.
Yeah, trying to set up around here. They've got green and white guns to be able to fight with Extorted, but they are going to be forced back away as the wave clear comes through from Chen, who has now finished the Staff of Flowing Water as well. So really going to be looking to accelerate the support that he can bring to his team, giving that additional AP and CDR over to the likes of this Gwen, over to the likes of this Misfortune, trying to amp their damage just a little bit. Now going to be able to answer the wave, now going to be forced retreat from the side of the Akuma Katanas. They recall, they spend their gold. They're going to get ready for this next dragon fight in about 1 minute and 40 seconds and try to defend their turrets in the meantime.
And about 2.5 items onto Klexo's Corky is going to be a solid foundation from which to build a team fight here. We're about 1.5 minutes from a Cloud Drake spawning, and it would be a huge boon for the side of the Akuma Katanas to prevent Nameless Thieves from picking up a 3rd dragon going to Soul Point here, especially given how potent the speed boost from Cloud Soul would be onto the Nameless Thieves' team.
Yeah, something else to keep in mind, no Grievous Wounds from the side of the Akuma Katanas here, facing off against, you know, this Riftmaker Gwen, the double Moonstone setup that they've brought with this Seraphine and this Karma. So we'll see if that ends up making the difference here. You're really going to have to try to take these guys out in one fell swoop, which is generally not what you want to be doing with your poke composition, but that might just be what they're forced to do now if they can't really cut into this healing at all.
Yeah, you have a lot of gold there down onto the Corky, but he's definitely not at full power yet. And given the fact that your gold lead is only about 3k. This doesn't mean that you're up a full item across the board on the side of Akuma Katanas. So if they're able to box out Klexo, I think that there's still a pretty even fight in the wings here as we move to about 15 seconds before Cloud Drink spawns.
Yeah, nice slow there, landed by Doubtful, but not able to be followed up on. 7 seconds to go on this dragon. You know that Nameless wants to keep stacking it on up, but they're going to have to walk through the damage of the Akuma Katanas. This is a great opportunity for their poke comp to kind of show what they've got here, trying to throw on in the rockets. That's going to be that Mantra E popped, though, going to try to speed them on up. There goes that Moonlight Vigil on the blue form, going to deal a whole bunch of damage as they're going to look to finish on off the dragon here. They are going to be able to get it, but that's a 3-man encore, melting right through Soli and Extorted. Doubtful jumps into the back line, but is it a 1 versus 3? He's going to melt right on down. Big fight for the Nameless Thieves as they claim 3 lives and can just start spam pinging the Baron.
I cannot believe that Chen Chen went from a whiffed encore to a game-defining ultimate right there around this dragon. Sure, it's 2 for 2 now, but this is going to be Baron going over to the side of Nameless Thieves, and they'll really begin to look for a big advantage here moving forward. I think we saw that they are in fact able to resist and heal through that poke composition that you were talking about, Gordo. We do have a little bit of contestation around this Baron here. Big package coming through.
Yeah, coming on in, try to burn down on all the members. Big shutdown onto Kissy. Big kill onto Strova. Has the opportunity to steal the Baron. Is going to be able to do so. Has completely wiped the team. Klexo gets the quadra kill. Gets the Baron. Puts the Akuma Katanas on his back. And is looking to try to close out this game single-handedly. Slams the door shut on the Nameless Thieves and keeps the lead in his team's favor.
I mean, Caster's curse for 1, but 2, Klexo really didn't have much of a presence there in that fight around the drag. I was actually seeing him kind of like channel a recall there for a second. A bit confused about that, but it turns out that even though he saw his team go down around him, he realized, hey, I'm at full health. I'm able to do something at this Baron. And what a turn. Akuma Katanas going deeply into that driver's seat here as a fight begins inside of the base of Nameless.
Yeah, Strovo's looking to keep this one going, knows that they haven't recalled, knows that Klexo is incredibly low. Kai dives in the backline, trying to stay alive with that needlework. That's multiple members getting hit by the bullet time. It is going to be No Flame Top Brain, the first one to fall down, and Strova can chase this down all day long. Gets the blue smite on through, comes on, pokes onto Doubtful, but is now getting the damage turned back around against him. Kissy finally going to be able to finish that kill off onto the Xin Zhao. Now looking to keep advancing forward, but Klexo lands another rocket, turns it off against the opposing AD carry, goes legendary, and is now leading the charge back into the front of the side of the Nameless Thieves, but it's going to be Strova turning it back around, getting the shutdown off of 2 quick punches, the Phoenix stance and the Bear stance doing work there. Now moving forward onto Extorted, going to land the stun. Here's the chain CC, another kill going over to Chen Chen and the Nameless Thieves. They got blown up on that last play, but they are not out of this game.
Wow, a little bit of overconfidence on the side of Akuma Katanas to continue that fight for as long as they did. The double Moonstone really paying dividends and allowing for the side of Nameless Thieves to really soak up a lot of that poke damage as they began to chase down the big Fed members from Katanas. Obviously, Corky's still doing a lot there, being able to take down Kissy ADC after they mispositioned a bit in that fight, really showing his continued confidence and the strength that we'll be seeing coming out here, especially as they just get deeper on into their build. But Nameless Thieves have got to be super happy that basically every single Baron buff has been taken out from the side of Katanas, only costing them that inhibitor. And one of the Nexus turrets going down, but similar to what we saw last game, I think that what their hope is just to like really never allow for Akuma Katanas to get another huge push into their base like that.
Yeah, definitely. They're solidifying themselves on a few more items here, hoping to never really end up in that situation again as their scaling picks start to get a little bit stronger here. 3 support items in the pocket of Chen Chen here. They've got the double Moonstone already done. They're getting more items into Kissy's pocket, getting more items into Strova's pocket, and getting Kai scaled up just a little bit more now with access to the Zonias as well. Still no... Alright, a little bit of Grievous Wounds picked up for the Akuma Katanas. There's an Oblivion Orb in Soli's inventory. Going to be likely moving that into the Chemtech Putrefier, much like Chen Chen has already completed.
That Putrefier going to really help, especially given the extent to which Lulu will be able to spread those grievous wounds around the team here with her shields, with her W. But at the same time, I really think that we're still going to be seeing continued resilience from the side of Nameless Thieves. I think that even with this big Corki on the map, you still have to be exceptionally careful about how you choose your fights if you're Akuma Katanas. Right now, Encore is back up on the side of Chen, and it's going to be dropped right there.
Is locking down onto Soli, who pops their ultimate, but is going to fall down anyway, and Extorted just gets melted there by the damage that Kai brings to the table. Kai is dominating this fight, gets a huge shutdown up against the legendary Klexo, gets another one up against Doubtful. 4 members down for the Akuma Katanas. Ping's going on towards the Dragon, but the Nameless Thieves now have the chance to take so much off the back of that fight.
Wow, Chen and Kissy ADC together, just able to do so much here. The fact that you get that charm going down, you get this initial burst, allows for Strova and Kai to really rush on in and scatter the weak with their abilities here. They are not wanting for damage at all, even with that supportive Seraphine mid.
Yeah, no, just complete domination there from Kai. Gets the snip onto multiple members, gets the needlework onto multiple members, is completely demolishing the health bars of Extorted, of Doubtful, of Klexo in just a few short moments there. Now, goes from being 0-5 and largely, unimpressive on the scoreboard. Now has 2 kills in their pocket, is going to be able to turn that into an additional item. That was 1,000 gold shutdown on the Corki, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, they just get a Void Staff right off the bat.
And this itemization is a little bit interesting coming from Kai here. It's not full damage and it's not full attack speed as we typically see a Gnasher's Tooth second on the Gwen here. That ability for them to opt into the Zanya second was giving me a few doubts there, but the fact that they were able to get that huge influx of gold from the last team fight kind of means that you're able to get over that kind of mid-game doldrums phase for the Gwen and get her firmly back into the driver's seat as a big split pushing threat and someone who also has the ability to dive on into those team fights and get a lot of punishment down onto the enemy team.
Yeah, game's I don't even have words for it. It's majorly back and forth here for the side of both these teams. Such a close game. Really glad to see game number 1 followed up in this way. Don't ever want to stop seeing the bangers going back and forth here in the Aegis Vanguard League. And Nameless Thieves, though, looks like they're starting to take control back, and if they don't slip up again like they did earlier, they may be on the verge of taking down the undefeated Akuma Katanas. Akuma, of course, have no interest in allowing that to occur here. They're going to start on off the Baron. They're the first ones to get here, and they are going to try to use their poke to force back off the members of the Nameless Thieves. They are grouping on up here. Kai has access to the teleport. Corki package is available. Chen taking a little bit of damage. They're going to get forced back here by the threat of the Jace. They don't seem to be able to find a pathway in. Package going to cut off their only path, and that's going to be the Baron going over to the side of Akuma. Strova trying to just face tank the package, is going to find a way onto Klexo. Kai has teleported on in, but does not have a great angle, and that's going to be Chen getting one shot there by the poke damage of the Jace. Strova getting chased on back. That's a big bullet time, but it's going to be Extorted sliding into the back line, finishing off the kill onto Kissy. Kai going to fall on down as well, and they've botched it. They aren't going to be able to carry on through the lead that they had. That's going to be 4 members down from the Nameless Thieves and the Akuma Katanas. They've already taken out some Nexus turrets from earlier. They're going to close out game number 2.
Oh, you see what happens when the Seraphine can't get that ult off. That was a great zoning package there, and I really thought we were going to see that used a bit more offensively, but the missed position from Nameless Thieves going to be doing them in here. Going up here 1-1 is the Akuma Katanas answering back in kind for that first game.
Huge win there for the Akuma Katanas. Really looking like the Nameless Thieves were going to be able to carry that one on through off the back of their last major fight, but they find themselves another big win. They get a decisive Baron call to be able to claim that objective and win a big fight off the back of it. and they are able to close out the game off the back of it. Two huge Baron fights there for the Akuma Katanas, shut the Nameless Thieves down, and take us to a game number 3, Nyarko.
And if there's any series in which I want to see a game 3, it is definitely this one here. Incredibly close game 2, done in by a few little mistakes that just snowballed the Corki out of control there for Akuma Katanas. It'll be interesting to see what Nameless Thieves does in this next draft phase. I think we've been seeing that they have multiple players that can really get into the driver's seat and dictate the pace of fights with big engages. Be that Bashful Iceberg or be that Chen Chen here in the second game. So a whole lot of potential here for Nameless Thieves and Akuma Katanas staying at the top of their game, not letting that dropped round 1 get to them here. They're looking to keep their perfect record.
Absolutely are here, and that is going to be an exciting game number 3. A huge carry performance from Klexo carries the Akuma Katanas here to be able to play a third time. We're going to throw it to a quick break here. We'll be getting the draft for game number 3, but don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back as soon as we've got some draft to show you.
Everybody, panic! Hold on! I'm about to say something really cool. 3, 41, 9, and lift off! No one dies screaming without me. I feel like I forgot to shoot something. You're starting to bore me. She's such a loser, always ready to cry. Ah, come on. What's the worst that could happen?
Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's matchup in the Aegis Vanguard League between the Akuma Katanas and the Nameless Thieves. It does look like it's going to be a side swap coming on in for game number 3 as the Nameless Thieves are taken out of the blue side for the first time tonight. Akuma Katana is going to be on the red. The Quirky Band going to come on through from the Nameless Thieves. A huge game from Klexo there in game number 2 to keep the Akuma Katanas alive and in this.
Oh, we're getting the Rammus hover again from Akuma Katanas, completely undeterred by the fact that they accidentally ended up locking it in on Draftle there. Gonna be swapped over to the Jin, luckily. Yeah, explosive game number 2 for the side of Akuma Katanas. Nameless Thieves keeping it even, but a few core team fights really cost them a 2-0 victory here. Akuma Katanas now being able to take it to game 3 will be able to rebalance and are going to try to find a way to make this a little bit more dominant to show why they continue to be the top team here.
Yeah, Akuma goes for the Xin Zhao again here. They first picked it on blue side last game. They're going to pair it up with the Jin this time as Jinx gets through. For the first time this series has been getting banned away on the red side by the side of Nameless. This time around, it's going to be Akuma on the red. They choose to ban the Karma instead, and that is going to allow that Jinx to come on through. The Tom Kench going to be the lock-on in for the side of the Nameless Thieves to go into that bottom lane along with the Jinx. Full bot lane selected now for that blue side, and we'll see if they want to take a jungler here as well. Something to face off against this Xin Zhao. Hecarim's still available, Udyr's still available, but it's going to be the Camille that gets hovered here and gets locked on in.
Yes, Sir Thomas Kenchington, also a champion that was banned out in that first game. It is nice to see him rear his big fat head here in game 3. A lot of good engage potential, as well as just a huge frontline threat that will continue to be a thorn in the side of Akuma Katanas here. Camille, something that we saw a lot of value come from Kai on in round 1, that they put them on Gwen duty in game 2, and while we still saw a lot of great performance over there, I think that Camille is someone that can really snowball that top side lane, and given the fact that No Flame top lane looked a little bit wobbly there in game number 2, I think that this will be the champion that will really allow for Nameless Thieves to try to play for top side early and to really begin to build up momentum.
Yeah, absolutely here, and that Rel now going to be the lock-on in here for the side of Akuma, so they know what the bot lane they're facing off against is going to be, and they decide they want this form of hard engage in the form of the Rel, and they're going to take one horse and ban away the other as they take the Hecarim off the board here for their first ban on that red side phase 2. Now, we'll see what they want to take. They likely are going to want to aim for a top laner here on R4 to counterpick towards mid, knowing that they're up against the Camille. They also have a great chance now to pinch that jungle pool, knowing that they've already got the Xin Zhao locked on in, and they can remove more off the process.
I love this Rel lock-in for Akuma Katanas. This obviously does mean that we're going to be seeing a little bit more in the realm of like ranged AP threats coming through in the second half of the draft here, but you know, as someone who plays a lot of Rel there in that support role, I think that her engage potential and lockdown across multiple members will really be a boon, especially given the premium being placed upon getting across through that front line onto the carries on the side of the Nameless Thieves here. Jinx, really someone that you want to lock down. If you're able to keep them in place with your ultimate, I think that you're going to be able to really melt them and get them out of the fight quickly. Ornn going to be the lock-in here, though, for the top side. Akuma Katana is going to be putting No Flame top lane on tank duty once more after what we saw in game 1. Up against the Camille, it's something that you will struggle to burst down, and you have like a lot of disruptive potential there with the ultimate. So definitely not a bad pick up here, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not Kai will truly be able to capitalize on their aggressive pressure in that lane.
The Sejuani now going to be the lock-on in for Strava. He's played this a couple of times already. Does pair up very nicely with that Camille to try to get her rolling early on. And now they have to blind pick their mid laner to close on out the rest of this draft. They got a strong split push threat in the top lane, but they've also got a strong team fighting core here with their Sejuani, with their Jinx. They're going to round that one out with the Victor. Very generically good pick there. Going to be safe against most matchups. Going to bring a lot of power into team fights. We saw a good game from Klexo out on game number 1, but was not able to close on out the victory Now we'll see what the Akuma Katanas want to lock in to face off against it here. Got their pick of the litter for Klexo. Had a fantastic game number 2. Curious to see what he ends up going for. His Irelia is on the table, but they decide they need a little bit of magic damage, and they lock on in the Rise.
And Rise most likely going to be opting for that tank build we've been seeing all over professional play recently. It's where you go for the Thimble, Winter, and Frozen Heart as your second and third items, and this just allows for a lot of sustain. And given how front line forward you see Akuma Katana's current lineup, I like the fact that you're going to be able to be playing a little bit further up with the Rise to help get that point and click lockdown down to follow in on Rel Engage or Ornhorn, things of that nature. Nameless Thieves kind of said that we won't be seeing Chen back onto the Seraphine. That was just a huge meta defining or fight defining champion in round 2 there with those charms, but you do have a flourishing of options for Engage in the other members of the squad there. Tahm Kench, Sejuani, both massive tanks that will be able to find lockdowns onto select members of Akuma Katanas. Camille also being able to isolate out champions with that Hextech ultimatum. So at the end of the day, Victor definitely a big pickup here, going to be able to layer on CC of his own, but also dish out the damage as a defined backline threat alongside the Jinx.
Yeah, definitely. The Nameless Thieves have a good setup to try to play back in these fights with this Jinx, with this Victor, laying down traps, trying to layer down damage before, ending up succumbing to the engage of the Akuma Katanas. And the Akuma Katanas have got a load of it here with that Ornn coming in with the Call of the Forge God, with the Rel that they've locked on in for this bottom lane, and just with the follow-up that this Jhin, that this Xin Zhao, that this Rise are all going to provide. They are going to be looking to hard force these team fights, and they're going to be able to do it at very, very long, effective ranges here, both by teleporting allies in and just by getting fights started from a long range away using their Ornn, using their Jhin. So really going to be tough for the Nameless Thieves here to play around that. They're going to want to either start the fight on their own terms, using their Sejuani, using their Tahm Kench, using their Camille, or get the kind of perfect front-to-back setup here to where Victor and Jinx can really punish the approaching, relatively short-range carries of the Akuma Katanas with this Jhin, with this Rise, assuming that, they aren't getting caught on out by the long-range CC that the Akuma Katanas have.
And similarly to what we've been seeing in rounds 1 and 2 in this matchup between Akuma Katanas and Nameless Thieves, we're seeing this kind of mismatch in terms of range and engage potential from either side, which leads to these really dynamic and engaging team fights as both teams are playing for pretty radically different approaches to objectives especially. So it'll be cool to see that happen for a third time here, and it will really become a question of execution between the two teams. I like the fact that Nameless Thieves have opted for pretty reliable means of engage and fight. Tahm Kench will always be someone who attracts a lot of damage towards him due to his ability to place himself deep within fights. Sejuani, similarly, with her ultimate, is able to do a lot of work for relatively low effort to really get his fight started. In turn, Akuma Katanas have the ability to dictate fights on their own terms here. Call the Forge.
Oh, we may have lost Nyarko there, unless I'm the one who is lost, but, alright, so, it's not me. That means it is Nyarko. I'll take over from there for at least a little bit of time now, as, yeah, and something else to be brought up is Soli on this Rel has a solid counter pick here. They've double counter picked in the bottom lane. So they saw the Jinx first, they took the Jhin into that one to try to be able to fight it early on, and then they saw the Tahm Kench, and they take the Rel here, who's going to be able to all in on top of it, who's going to have that shield break to deal with the thick skin, and is really going to be very, very valuable there to be able to win out in that 2 versus 2. Now let's see how the junglers want to path here. This Xin Zhao, also somebody I expect to be able to be active and on the map early on, making plays. If he wants to path towards that bottom lane, they can really set up to be very effective up against this Jinx Tahm Kench. Try to make those early dives happen. Rel probably going to have that aftershock going to be tanky, going to be able to get the fight started, and then the Tahm Kench not going to have access to the tool that he normally does in the form of that big thick-skinned shield, because Rel is just going to be able to delete it right off of his entire health bar. We'll see what this side of Strova can do to try to run interference up against that. Has that Sejuani, of course, will be able to be counter-picking, counter-ganking, rather, up against this Xin Zhao if he can track him appropriately. We'll see how that ends up playing on out here. So we've got all of our picks locked on in client, and we are going to throw to a quick break here while we get loaded onto the game. Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Vanguard League, where the Akuma Katanas and the Nameless Thieves have gone all the way to Game 3 here. Akuma Katanas now on their first game on the red side. Nameless Thieves, their first on the blue. The Akuma Katanas have gotten themselves a crazy teamfight comp here, solely jumping over the wall They're looking to set up onto Kai here. This is a practiced play as they come on in, and Kai is going to walk directly into Soli here, who's going to flip him back on in. No flash on this Camille. Will probably be forced to start E here, but has actually already started Q, is getting chased on down by Doubtful. There's the Ignite, and that should be first blood, but no, just barely Kai stays alive.
Those potions going to come in real handy right there. As you said, big coordinated play on the side of Akuma Katanas there. I was hoping that we would see an invade, and Lord, did we get one. Soli with that big W from the lack of vision over the wall right there, able to get that wraparound down onto the Camille. Not going to translate into a kill, but really showing the coordination from the side of Akuma Katanas, and a pretty big exclamatory start to this round 3.
Yeah, Doubtful going for the flash instead of the ignite this time around on the Xin Zhao, so feeling its absence in the previous game, deciding to go for a little bit less of a all-in style towards his jungling. Maybe wanted that to stop the healing from the double Moonstone build, to be seen. But nonetheless is going to have access to that tool this time around as Kai and No Flame going at it in the top lane here at level 1. No summoners blown by Kai, as he didn't have the flash to blow in the first place. So the only summoner that really ends up getting the expense from that level 1 play is Soli's Ignite.
And sometimes maybe it's good to self-limit the summoners that you go for there. Kai also not even having to burn teleport, as that play was early enough on for them to walk back to lane, as we see some big trades coming through and Doubtful in the area.
Kai incredibly low here, and there's a flash engage from Doubtful to pick up the first blood. Kai just going a little bit too hard there. Wanted to get an opportunity to go against No Flame top lane and going to lose his life for it. Now Strova in a 1 versus 2 has a lot more health. No Flame flashes in to try to get the brittle proc. Not going to be able to do it before it expires. Chen is coming on in. Kai over the wall goes for the tactical sweep. Doubtful trying to get an additional kill here, is going to be able to make it happen, but ends up losing his life as well. It's a 2-for-1 in favor of the Nameless Thieves, who are now chasing Klexo across the map. Here comes Tom Kench. Flash Abyssal Dive, going to force out Klexo's flash.
And there are the summoner spells gone for the Camille. Kai using that teleport to get back into lane, sees that the re-engage is beginning with Strova coming on into the area there, leading to even kills on either side, and even gold as well. Action-packed start to the game, as it looks like Tom isn't going anywhere. Abyssal diving back out, but look at that domination there from the side of Nameless Thieves, being able to get their support up and roaming so early on.
Yeah, and Doubtful has completed 2 camps, by the way. He's at 8 CS right now. Has really been trying to make plays happen all over the map here. Was able to get that first blood onto Kai. And was able to get a return kill in the engagement as well. So now has plenty of camps left to return to here, but is behind the ball on where Strova is. Strova sitting on 2 assists, but has gotten a lot more done as far as jungle clearing goes. We'll see if that ends up making a difference as these fights start to break out. Soli now has access to his Ignite once again in the bottom lane, so let's keep our eyes down here, see if we're going to be able to find an opportunity for a fight on the side of Extorted and Soli.
And Iron Spike Whip is going to make it so that Xin will get a little bit of an adjustment to his clear speed. We saw Udyr in the hands of Strova last game really being able to out-farm the Xin Zhao, but given the fact that they are on Sejuani this time around, I think that in terms of CS, we'll be seeing at least a little bit more evenness between the junglers here.
Yeah, definitely. Soli and Extorted are going to successfully bring this wave on in. Kai trying to deny CS where he can, but is just going to find himself face-to-face with Doubtful. Going on in for the Wind Becomes Lightning here. Manages to land that slow. Gets the solo kill there up against Kai. Assist going on over to No Flame top lane, actually. He dealt damage recently enough. And now the bullying squad coming up into this top lane. But meanwhile, here's an engage from Bashful Iceberg at the bottom lane, locking down onto Extorted. He's going to flash away from the Tongue Lash, but now here comes Strova trying to make the difference. Meanwhile, Klexo getting the fight started here up against Chen, who is going to get hit by the Wind Becomes Lightning, going to get dashed on into, and that's going to be another kill picked up for Doubtful. Meanwhile, Soli and Extorted managed to get themselves out in the bottom lane. They expended their summoners to do so, and now Strova breaking out into a fight with Doubtful, and now Blast Cone over the wall from Extorted and Soli. Here comes the Abyssal Dive. dive from that Tom Kench. The turn back around from Solely. Doubtful trying to keep the fight going. Doesn't have the regen yet, though, from the Gore Drinker. And so the turnaround from Strova just a little bit too strong. Extorted going to one back into the fight to try to turn it around. He's going to lose his life as well. 3 kills. Make that 4 in the top lane now as Kai finishes off the solo kill. Klexo, once again, the last man standing for the Akuma Katanas, and he cannot scrape anything back together.
And that was a big engage down onto Strova. I liked what we saw the bot lane of Akuma Katanas go for there with a blast plant over the wall, solely providing tons of CC that fight, staggering out the utilization of their E and W to first get a stun down onto the jungler and then disrupt the Tom Kench as they emerge from the abyssal dive. But that sustain was just too much, and with the Jinx now in the equation, Kissy ADC able to go up 2-0 and really answer back strongly in favor of Nameless Thieves.
Yeah, definitely going to be a big turnaround for that side of the Nameless Thieves. Now, truly on the board here, had a rough start in the top lane, but are now back in the driver's seat, have themselves a 1.5k gold lead, and are set up to scale well into the late game as well with this Jinx, with this Victor, with this Sejuani. So definitely feeling good about how this early game has gone. It's doubtful really where all these kills are sitting for the Akuma Katanas, literally where all these kills are sitting for the Akuma Katanas, and is, not going to be this huge force in the later game. He's got to keep that snowball rolling, and as of right now, it's kind of halted.
And I do like where Doubtful has been deciding to focus their attention, making sure that Kai isn't able to get extremely ahead of No Flame top brain. Was really working out there for a few minutes, but now we're beginning to see that gap widen, because as soon as his attention was drawn towards the bot side, we saw that solo kill go onto the side of Kai there, and in turn he just wasn't able to get anything really valuable rolling. And now the Jinx is up 2-0, has that Noon Quiver alongside Berserker's Greaves built, so his attention will only continue to be further divided as we see him here move down towards the bot lane.
Kissy going to be forced to flash away there by the engage from Doubtful. Little Glacial Prison going to help him out the rest of the way. Nice use of that ultimate in the top lane from Kai to be able to finish off the solo kill up against No Flame. And now it's the rest of the Akuma Katanas looking to get this dragon started up. Kai does have access to the TP. Doubtful dives on in there, uses the Crescent Guard, but he's going to end up melting on down to the damage from Chen Chen going to turn that into a double kill. Now looking to make it into even more. Extorted is in the front lines here. He's going to fall on down after finally managing to trade it for a kill onto Strova, but that's 4 members down now for the Akuma Katanas, and the Nameless Thieves have taken the fight. They're 11-6, and they're going to get themselves the first dragon as well.
There was no ultimate from Soli there, given the fact that they were still at level 5, meaning that their engage was not the best. They weren't able to get the lockdown necessary for the fight to turn in favor of Akuma Katanas. Doubtful also going in maybe a little bit too early and getting bursted down. And even though we got some kills racked up onto their side, Nameless Thieves coming out basically with another delayed ace as a W goes down onto the Jinx.
Yeah, Kissy going to fall on down here. That's a big shutdown going over to the side of Extorted. He's going to be happy to get that one in his pocket. A little bit of over-aggression there from Kissy, disrespecting the engage potential of Soli here. It's Kai getting pressured onto here, uses the hook shot in. It's an opportunity for Doubtful to maybe try to make this engage happen, although there's multiple members of the Nameless Thieves showing up to try to turn this play around. They're going to land that mace. They're going to slow on down Doubtful, and No Flame stuns coming on through. The damage is pretty big, but it's taking a while to be able to finish him off. Bashful, though, going to stomp on up Strava, keep the jungler alive, turn that into another kill as No Flame top rank going to fall on down as well, and this game just keeps coming up. Nameless Thieves, they get themselves 2 more in the top lane.
And it looks like these plays are initially going in favor of Akuma Katanas. I can imagine that from a shot calling level, they're seeing advantageous movements to make, and they are taking those opportunities. But everything just gets turned around so fast. Nameless Thieves employing that Bashful Iceberg to the fullest extent possible in these fights, really being able to select targets, select how to rotate, and when it comes to things like that 3v2, 2, we see the ability of that Tahm Kench to really start putting down the hurt and really impacting things out here, as he also gets the flash from Extorted.
The plays just keep coming as a TP into the bottom lane from Kai to counter what was a potential dive onto Kissy is going to net them another kill here onto Extorted. Now that's going to be the channel on the Rise ultimate interrupted by that Chaos Storm, and that's a double kill off the Super Mega Death Rocket, baby. Kissy says thank you from across the map and returns back to his farming with 2 more kills worth of gold in his pocket. It is the Nameless Thieves again continuing to dominate in this matchup. More than double the kills of the Akuma Katanas. 11 minutes in here with a 3k gold lead. Kissy finally going to go on down here. Loses his life once again. Can't keep pushing up onto that turret though. You know, he's getting plenty of kills, but every time he tries to get himself a turret plate, he loses his life. And that's going to be Chen Chen taken on down as well by Extorted, along with a nice little engage there from No Flame Top Brain, who turns it around and will kill up against Chen Chen as well. That's going to be 2 more for the Akuma Katanas. They are once again not willing to go quietly. They are going to make Nameless Thieves fight for every inch of this series.
And they will need to continue to make plays like that. Nameless Thieves, big advantage still on their side. A lot of momentum. They've been able to capitalize on a lot of the mistakes from the side of the Akuma Katanas. But in turn, this gives them the confidence to push forward and make mistakes of their own, frankly, as we see Kai going in here.
Kai goes unstoppable, dives back on in, playing on the edge, picks up the solo kill up against No Flame Stroba. Now looking to keep the play going on to Klexo. He's going to be able to back on away. But Kai, with the play in the top lane, to claim himself some turret plates. In the bottom lane now, it's the Akuma Katana setting up, trying to make it even, but that's going to be the Abyssal Dive, landing onto 2 targets, turnaround damage. Kissy has so many items, is about to finish off on a Doubtful, gets excited, now the chase down coming through on a Soli. Soli gonna go down as well. Extorted has to head back under his turret, and that's 2 more kills for the Nameless Thieves in the bottom lane.
Well, it's not a total loss. Akuma Katanas did get that control ward, but that's a big ultimate coming down onto Jin now.
Extorted, getting continuously chased onto. There's another snipe off the rocket. Kissy loves landing those this game here. Gonna get up his 7th kill off the back of that one. He's only really been present for 4 of those 7. The other 3 were afterthoughts thrown out by the rocket. Huge play there to get another kill onto Extorted, and now finally is going to be able to get himself some of those well-deserved turret plates in the bottom lane.
And this really is starting to turn out to be a worst-case scenario for the early game. Akuma Katanas not really able to push advantages across the map here. Xin Zhao got a lot done, but this is answered by the individual prowess from the laners and Sejuani's work on their own here. Solely gonna walk right by, gonna have to crash down to try to get out, but Abyssal Dive coming through.
Yeah, that was a little cartoon moment there. As Soli and Strova walk right past each other and then realize, wait, that guy's not on my team. They turn back around, they keep the fight going, and it's still coming up in Nameless Thieves every single time. And 3 more kills now, 5v2 on the map. Extorted getting forced back, gonna have a Gale Force out of the action there after getting hit by that zap. Gonna get a couple of pot shots there and a Bashful Iceberg, but he will be able to escape.
And I can only imagine that some of what we're beginning to see coming out of Akuma Katanas here has to be down to a bit of mental damage being done by Nameless Thieves. They've gotten up so much here that we're really starting to see some sloppy movements across the map, solely just way too deep into what became basically enemy territory there after that bot lane tower fell. Sure, you had that little cartoon moment, but I think that that came from the fact that Strovo was just not expecting for anyone on the side of Akuma Katanas to walk up really carelessly like that.
Yeah, definitely not the cleanest of plays, not what we're accustomed to from the Akuma Katanas here, who have their backs up against the wall for pretty much the first time here in the AVL. Predictions for Akuma to be able to take this series across the board in the weekly report there. Everybody predicting them to be able to take this series, but this upset very close to being in the bag for the Nameless Thieves here. Look, Kai getting engaged on once again. Good dodge there off the hook shot, going to avoid the engaged chance. Now Kissy and Bashful, they see a chance to go on to Klexo. They know there's 3 members in the top lane. Klexo going to flash back on into his own Realm Warp to escape, and it looks cool, don't get me wrong, but that's a flash and a teleport, or a flash and an ultimate blown for pretty much nothing over on the side there, and he loses his life anyway. It's Chen,
where'd you come from?
He zips on in there, he lasers out his opponent, and, you know, I was talking about it not being worth it for Klexo, now it's really not worth it for Klexo.
Ooh, yeah, Klexo really thinking they're saving that bot side jungle once again, but I think that it's pretty clear that that is now Nameless Thieves territory, as Doubtful going a bit too deep, going to be taken out, and now Kai proxy farming behind enemy lines.
Yeah, proxy farming champions, nonetheless, as Doubtful and Soli both going on down there. Finally, the shutdown going to get picked up by Extorted. They're keeping these plays going, but oh my goodness, is this a bloody game, Nyarko, as we have got 37 kills in 16 minutes, and we're not slowing down. Kissy going to end up going on down there as Klexo teleports back into the fight. Bashful Iceberg going to be the next target. He's trying to get out of there with his Abyssal Dive. Chen is split pushing in the side lane. He gets a bot lane inner turret. They're going to retreat away now, finally, but more and more kills, these times going over to the side of the Akuma Katanas, get themselves a little bit of shutdown gold, get themselves a little bit more into the pockets of Extorted.
And this is something we remarked upon even in that first game that went over to Nameless Thieves. Akuma Katanas rarely give up kills or objectives for nothing. And I think that we're seeing that come through again here. Sure, they're playing a little bit sloppy. They are down a considerable amount of gold and kills at this point, but they're still trying to find ways back in as they go for this Rift Herald topside.
This game is just a mess, Nyarko, as they continue to fight again and again. Doubtful going to be the first target this time. Soli leaves the game. That's got to be a spectator bug, as now they're going back on in. That's going to be a big call to Forge God to slow down the approach here. They lose Doubtful, but they get that Rift Herald. Going to be the closest thing to an even trade the Akuma Katanas have found in a long time.
And given the fact that objective bounties are up here, there is an extra amount of value to taking that Rift Herald, as if you can confirm that into a tower without losing a whole lot elsewhere on the map, you are still getting a lot of extra gold picked up onto their side that'll help to close what is basically around an 8.5 to 9k gold lead.
Definitely here, and they are going to need every little bit of gold they can get. Certainly appreciating the addition of those objective bounties at this point, but the Nameless Thieves, they're keeping the siege going. They're going to claim the last inner turret here. 18 minutes in, every inner turret off the board. Huge advantage for the side of the Nameless Thieves. The Baron spawning in about 2 minutes. That's going to be on the board. That's going to be a lot more accessible with all of these inner turrets taken down. The waves crashing up against the base itself, going to be very tough to respond to.
Not to mention the fact that we have Dragon in 40 seconds, 2 of them already claimed by the blue side here. Nameless Thieves would really love to go up to Soul Point once again here in this series, as a big engage is going to come through.
Yeah, big 5-on-5 team fight. They get themselves the objective bounty of that mid lane outer turret, but they are just getting demolished in the fight off the backside. A clean 5-for-0 ace for the Nameless Thieves. They can force fights anytime they want with this Tahm Kench, with this Sejuani, and that is probably going to call it here for this game number 3, Nyarko. They are just speeding on through the base here. Actually, only 10 seconds left to go. I forget it's only 19 minutes of the game. It might not be over quite yet.
I think that what we're probably going to just see here is the inhib taken, and they're going to all rotate back towards the Dragon. Not quite going to be the end, but this is a real dire situation for Akuma Katanas, who have basically have it proven to them that they just simply can't take 5v5s anymore. Even though they may have been a bit overextended in that fight, the fact that it was such a clean ace for Nameless Thieves probably means that you can do really nothing else but play defensively here. That is going to be curtain call coming down, though.
Yeah, trying trying to layer on down the CC, but Extorted going to fall
Oh
down to
no.
Kai so quickly. Klexo trying to make a stand here, has no flame top brain to try to slow them down, but the damage from Jinx is just too much. Triple kill to Kissy ADC, blowing the summoners to keep the pressure coming, and 36 to 12 in a 20-minute game. The Nameless Thieves are on the verge of shutting down the Akuma Katanas' perfect season, moving themselves up to 4-2, and getting themselves into the conversation for who's going to make those buys into the playoffs.
And while they would have loved the 2-0 here, they are up against who many thought were going to be the clear favorites in this series. And frankly, 2-1, definitely not bad. They are the sole people at the top of the leaderboard to take down the #1 seed here in the Noxus group of the Aegis Vanguard League. Nameless Thieves have a name to themselves at the very least. They have titles of Kingslayer here.
They absolutely do, and that's going to be huge for them in the standings here. You know, remember, there's only 7 other teams in your group. You play each of them once. Having a win in your pockets up against the Akuma Katanas, who prior to today were completely undefeated, that means so much for where you stand relative to everybody else in your group, which is really all that matters. You know, you want to get that top 2. You want to not have to play through the play-in stage to guarantee your spot in the playoffs, and with this win, Nameless have gotten themselves a lot of the way towards doing that.
And when you see who they're up against next week in the form of Kegamos fanboys who sit firmly at the very bottom of the leaderboard here, Nameless Thieves have really kind of gotten past the biggest hump in these early moments of the Aegis Vanguard League. This is pretty smooth sailing and a very good chance at them to nab that second spot away from Glacial Esports Yellow and get locked in for the playoffs there.
Yeah, Glacial has to play Tempest Gaming Vipers, so it'll be a little bit reliant on how that series ends up going. Nameless Thieves do own the head-to-head up against... they own the head-to-head up against Tempest. I'm looking through right here to try to find out what their head-to-head is up against Glacial. It looks like they have the head-to-head up against the Glacial as well. So, yeah, huge win for Nameless Thieves here. If they can close on out next week, they will lock themselves top 2.
Great plays seen throughout all of the games today, and even though Akuma Katanas went down 2-1, I think that they still demonstrated why they were such huge contenders here. The ability for them to rotate across the map and recollect after even some shaky plays to say, here is what we need to do to get back into the game, and here's how we act upon it, really demonstrates the fact that they are ready to go down swinging and really contest every single last little moment of the game.
Yeah, and you know, we love to see that competitiveness here between these squads. We love to see them being able to take down these undefeated teams. With this fall of Akuma Katanas, there are now no undefeated teams left in the Aegis Vanguard League, and you know, that's just how you like it. You would want to be able to have competitive records here. You want to have everybody, you know, you want to come into playoffs thinking that anybody could win it, and that's certainly going to be the case here. Everybody in this league has been challenged by somebody else at some point or another, and, you know, with only one more regular season week to go before we get into the play-in stage, that's going to get us all the more excited for playoffs.
Yeah, no X0 teams and no 0X teams either, really showing that we just got such a great crop here in the Noxus standings for the Aegis Vanguard League. We thank you so much for tuning in tonight in this round between Akuma Katanas and Nameless Thieves. For those of you just tuning in, we just saw a big 3-game set finally go over into the pockets of Nameless Thieves, who have taken down the last single standing example of an undefeated team here in AVL.
Yeah, and we are joined here by Kissy ADC, who's joining us here for a quick little post-match interview. Congratulations on your win, man. How many kills do you think you picked up off of Super Mega Death Rocket in that last game?
Well, thank you very much for having me, guys. I think, kills is not everything. I'm focusing more on the team play. Just having good communication. Positive vibes. But if I were to count, probably 15 plus, definitely. Yeah, 15 plus Super Mega Death Rockets.
What a professional answer there. Starting with the team play, I think that we really saw great cohesion from Nameless Thieves. And once again, congratulations to you all for sticking through it through thick and thin in those 3 rounds there. We saw, especially in the last game here, you really beginning to come into your own and picking up the largest amount of momentum on your team. How does it feel to kind of be the main carry and the main person that needs to enact and put damage down onto the enemy? How does that maybe change how calls are done around neutral objectives? And how does that kind of change how shot calling works for the Nameless Thieves?
Um, well, first of all, thank you very much for pointing that out. I'd like my team to hear that. So I was the main carry, guys. But thank you for pointing that out. That's actually a really good question. So I think it was more about, having my whole team support me, getting me those early kills. I had to have, I can't do everything on my own, even though I feel like I can sometimes. I think everybody did their job to get me the kills, and I think it wasn't just me. Doing any callouts or anything. I think we were all cohesive and synergistic. And yeah, I think our Sejuani got me a lot of kills.
Okay, kid.
The Bashful
Give it
on
to me.
support. He was just roaming around the map, getting me all these kills. Um, but yeah, I think our teams just as a whole, we're getting there. We're really solid right now. It
You're
feels like after this performance.
Yeah, an awesome performance tonight for sure. So you guys showed us a lot of different team compositions tonight. You played pretty much different styles in every game. You had that Kindred draft in game number 1. You had that double Enchanter draft in game number 2, and then in game number 3 coming out with kind of this more traditional team fight setup. Is that kind of diversity something you guys are really intentionally trying to be able to have as a team, or was that just what you thought was your best chance to win in each and every individual game?
Um, Yeah, so without giving away too much, because we're wanting to win this league, but I think our main goal with our team comps were like throughout 2 out of the 3 games was more to just have priority, early game, and then have the first step, have the first move on every play that we get to make ourselves. We're the ones who get to control the tempo of the game and what happens during the games. Um, and I think, yeah, game two, we wanted to try something a little different. It ended up, not going in our favor, but I wouldn't have traded that game for the world. We need to lose some to improve. And overall, we came in with a super strong game three. And I think, yeah, having that early priority, being able to control the game on our standards, just really felt like that's where we thrive.
That's really great to hear. And I like the fact that you keep bringing it back to this idea of communication and team cohesion. Given the fact that you are now the first team in the league to take down Akuma Katanas, who was sitting pretty at 5-0 before this week, how did going up against the top ranked seed in the Noxus standings really kind of impact how you all thought about and prepared for this series of games?
I'm not gonna lie, we did have a little bit of a draft prep, okay, because we wanted to give every team the benefit of the doubt. Even though we feel like we're super strong, we know that, just do a little draft prep before each game never hurt anybody. And obviously you saw through those games that it ended up working. But yeah, to answer your question more specifically, I think we went into it knowing they were a pretty strong team. So we wanted to make sure that we came out stronger, and just have all that early pressure, all those early plays that we made. Just to make it so they couldn't even really play the game. So yeah, I definitely think we went into it not knowing for sure how it would go as early, but obviously we ended up with a dub on the series. So yeah.
All right. Well, awesome to hear from you there. We're going to probably close it on out for the night here, but want to give you an opportunity to shout out anybody you want to shout out or anything you want to say to everybody watching at home before we call it a week on the ABL.
No, I don't have anyone. I'm kidding. So yeah, I'd like to thank my entire team. Yeah, I think I can't just say one person. Actually, I can say everybody but Chen, which is my mid laner. Everybody was just super, super well, awesome the whole game, all the games, and yeah, little weak in the mid lane, but everyone else, amazing job, and I can't wait to see what we have in the future. Thank you guys so much for the interview.
Absolutely, man. All right, Shen, you heard it. You got to step it up, my dude. We will catch everybody next week for more of the Aegis Vanguard League. We got more Aegis Leagues coming towards you for the rest of this week. We'll be back next week with week number 7 before we get into those play-ins and start getting into our postseason here in the Aegis Vanguard League. From myself, Nyarko, and Samalkram on production, have yourselves a great night, and thanks for tuning in.